Gosh, who's got their who's on
It's
audio
me.
and is not muted?
It's me. I'm trying to get my computer, so I'm on the phone.
Oh,
No,
I
the
see.
computer's picking you up too, Bobby.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, you need to sign off of either the phone or the.
yeah. I
Okay,
would
but
try
I
hanging
can't
up
hear
the
you.
phone.
Now I can't hear you.
Oh,
You
you
can't
just
hear
want
us, huh?
everything, don't you?
Okay.
Are you ready?
I think we are.
Okay, so calling the meeting to order. And the meeting is being recorded because you heard that with the feedback, right? So due to the governor's statewide disaster declaration relating to the COVID-19 pandemic and current public health guidelines for social distancing, I've determined that it's not prudent for the members of the village board or staff to convene in person for tonight's meeting. Therefore, the members of the village board are attending this meeting by video conference. Those same conditions require barring access to the public for in-person attendance. In light of those limitations, the public is invited to attend and listen to the meeting through the Zoom platform or by phone as indicated in the meeting agenda. To comply with the Open Meetings Act requirements for virtual meetings, tonight's meeting is being recorded. Welcome, everyone. Let's try to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
I
allegiance
pledge of allegiance to the
flag
flag
the flag
of the United States
of
of
the United
America,
States of America,
and
and to the republic
to the republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one nation, under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty,
and justice
justice
for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the visitors.
Oh,
we have
Bill,
two-
what about taking attendance and
Oh,
making
thank
sure
you very
everyone can
much.
be heard?
Yes, and make sure everyone can be heard. I'm just moving us right along. So
Yep.
please do that.
All right, Trustee Borowski, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Excellent. Trustee Kritzmeyer, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, I can. Trustee O'Reilly, can you hear me?
Oop,
I
Well,
cannot hear you, Trustee O'Reilly.
She said she didn't have audio.
Yeah,
Ah, okay. So,
I'll send her a text message.
yeah. Tell her to go back to her phone.
okay. Trustee Nora, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Excellent. Trustee O'Connor, can you hear me?
I can.
And Trustee Micho, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. All right.
So we know Bobby was here. I guess we'll just continue and hopefully she catches up here, right? So first off, I don't see any homeowners association here, any visitors here. Is Joel, is it Pokaloff from Bridlewood here by any chance? I don't see you. And nor do I see Charlie Wax from the old McHenry Road HOA. So here comes Bobby back in. Hopefully, Bobby, looks like, can you hear us, Bobby?
She's muted.
Can you unmute yourself, Bobby?
I just sent her a text.
Yeah, she's looking at it now, but I don't think she can hear us.
Well, I told her she's muted and I told her that she has to use her phone maybe only for the.
All right. If she can't hear, that's a problem.
Maybe not.
Be nice, Rita. I'm sure she can. So as we're getting prepared here, I suppose, for the next item on the agenda, while we're waiting to see if Bobby can connect.
She said she turned off her phone.
She can hear or not hear?
She said she can hear and she turned off the phone.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if that helps. Like I dial in on the computer and then I dial in on the phone. I use the 1312 number. as long as I put the participant ID, I'm in once.
Well, she's muted now, so if she's able to get in via the phone, then we'll be
That would work.
okay. Yep. So you've got Jenny, you've got a cat that's jumping all over you. It's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah,
A lot of action today.
I know. Tony is out of town and the cats are so lonely that I'm sitting over here to do the meeting and she is just driving me crazy. So if it's distracting, I can undo my video.
All right, let's
Hey,
see. If,
nothing can be as bad as having a mouse run next to your feet in the middle of the meeting.
that can't be good. Bobby, were you able to join?
Did that
Can you hear
happen,
us?
Ann?
Yes, that happened.
Oh, my goodness.
The
Okay,
cat,
we
the
can't,
ck came in with a not quite dead
we
mouse
can't
in
hear
his
you,
mouth
but
and dropped it.
Oh,
I
can
think
you
you
hear
can-
me now?
I can. That's awesome. All right, this is great. Success.
Well, kind of.
All right, good. So the second item on the agenda, since there were no HOA visitors here, Bobby, if you couldn't hear me, is review and accept the audit as prepared by Sikich for the fiscal year 2019. And I believe we have Dan Berg, Lindsay Fish here. Now, Ann, I did pull down the latest presentation that came via PDF. Is that what you want me to use?
I think so. Yeah, let Dan
Yes.
let you know. But yeah,
Yes,
so
Yes,
that
please.
I'd seen a discrepancy in one of the tables. Just so you all know, Dan sent a draft off, and Bill and I reviewed it. I annoyed them with astonishing number of questions, and that smile he has now, he kept smiling. So I want to thank both you and Lindsay for your help and your professionalism through all of this.
my pleasure. It's actually very nice to talk to an elected official that takes nearly as much interest as you did in the reports and the process. So thank you for all those questions. It was actually very good for both of us to go through. So nice job. Did you want me to jump into this presentation, or did you have opening remarks you'd like me to wait on, or?
I didn't prepare any opening remarks, but I guess maybe I'll take 2 minutes and a couple of them just to remind everybody that we went through a review and courting opportunity with a number of different potential audit firms over a year ago. And when we came down to it, we were equally very impressed and pleased with 2 of them, and ultimately ended up switching to Sikich, partly just to get another set of eyes on and to make sure that there were no concerns whatsoever with the prior auditor, but really more interest in having an additional, a different firm, a different point of view come into and ask questions and review and bring their knowledge and experience to the project. And I think that we succeeded in that based on the conversation I just related that we had, I guess, I don't know, a week and a half ago. So Dan and Lindsay worked quite a bit. Obviously, Dave's departure put a little bit of a pause into the whole process here. So Bill Balling, if you could confirm, I think we've had to apply for a bit of an extension. This should have been in on November 15th. That doesn't, there was one set of, clarify if I'm not wrong on that date, but so we want to make sure we get this right, but we do all need to review and make sure we're comfortable with this. There's there's different graphs and charts than you've seen in the past. There were some changes when you see in the communication that they sent to us, really kind of outlining the process and then giving us really all of the, finest level of detail of the adjustments and changes that they made to some of the journal entries. But overall, I'll let Dan and Lindsay talk about it. But overall, I think they were pleased with our finances, if not maybe a little tortured by the different routes they had to take through them. So hopefully that helps. If anybody has additional questions, I found them to be very helpful. And if you want to ask questions along the way or hold them to the end, I'll leave that to Dan.
It's up to you if you want to jump in with any questions along the way. I think especially if it relates to the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation, I think it'd be helpful to jump in with any questions you might have. So Thank you for the introduction. And I did want to emphasize that this was our first audit with the village, and the audit was somewhat delayed just to the second meeting here. We were pretty much wrapped up toward the mid to end of October, but again, with Dave's departure and Bill coming on, there was a little pause is a good word for it. Being that it was our first year and it was during a pandemic, we didn't really come out to Village Hall like we expected or to your accountant's offices. But we were able to get through it. And that's a testament to Lindsay and our audit team, as well as Debbie and Dave's responsiveness to our questions and requests for information. We did have a conference call with Debbie to go through the trial balances and adjusting journal entries and the reports a few weeks ago. So we're pretty much good to go. The comptroller's report for the state of Illinois is technically due on October. It's 180 days after year end. So it's October 28th. We applied for a 60-day extension to that to about December 27th. So we will make sure we get the comptroller's reports out before then. That's the one area that we do need to catch up on. With that, we can jump in to the next page. And there's an old picture of me, thankfully, and a recent picture of Lindsay, thankfully. So if you have any questions that you think of later this evening or into the coming period, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to take your call. We always tell boards that we work with staff, but we work for the board. So feel free to jump in with any questions you might have. So that brings us to the general fund. We have, sorry, catching up. A non-spendable fund balance of nearly $6 million and the unassigned fund balance of about 2.9 plus million, almost 3 million. And at the bottom, we see that the non-spendable has grown over the last 2 years significantly, while the committed and assigned has shrunk as a percentage of the equity. We can go to the next one. Maybe I should beep or something like the old film strips in grade school.
Whatever you like, just go for it.
This is,
Ooh, another reference blast from the past.
Yep, very old. Yep. I always tell my staff that I wasn't in the same high school class with Moses. He was just a few years ahead of me. So this is 10 years worth of the unassigned fund balance as a comparison to expenditures. It's an analysis that most bond houses would do initially to gauge your fund balance that's available for expenditures. And one of the reasons for the large drop this year was there was a significant change in the other transfers to other funds. So the transfer was about $1.6 million to the capital project fund, and that's why the expenditures for this year spiked. If it still would have gone down if that transfer wasn't made, but your percentage in the 2020 column, the bottom row there, would have been about 102%.
And if I could comment, that remember everybody, that's when we made that conscious decision to do that when the bridge got hit. I'm not even say which time, but when the bridge really got hit and we elected to try and make lemonade out of the lemons and scrounge for money to fix all of the foundations and everything else on the bridge.
Exactly. Okay, so the next slide shows the revenues for over a 10-year period for the general fund. And you'll see that they fluctuate somewhat, especially in the tax row. It's come down significantly, especially in the last 5 years. And fines and permits, as one would expect with construction cycles, have somewhat fluctuated over the past 10 years. So the actual decrease in expenditures is about, increase in revenues. Sorry, I'm looking at too many things. Actually changed from the prior year. It is down by about $42,000. Sorry about
If
that.
memory serves, Dan, I think also between 2017 and 2018 is when we started actually working and creating the capital projects budget, and that some of those taxes ended up diverted to that budget, and that actually is also part of the fall between 2017 and 2018.
Right. The capital improvement fund actually had about $300,000 worth of intergovernmental revenues. Okay, next slide. This is a graphical representation, and being color deficient, I'll just say that the total revenues, the top row, has been relatively consistent as a percentage, even though it's spiked somewhat as a dollar amount back in 2016, and then come down from there, probably due to the capital project fund. Okay. The next slide, 10 years worth of governmental expenditures, and you'll see that they went up about 300 and some $1,000, almost $400,000 from the prior year, and that's almost all in the Public Works Department. You'll also notice as a trend, the general government has been inching up pretty much almost every year from 2013 forward to the level it was virtually the same as last year, but it has increased somewhat over time. So this is, I find these types of graphs 10-year trend schedules to be very handy. It's what would be in a statistical section if we had a comprehensive annual financial report.
Hey, Dan, what is in the general government? What's all in that bucket?
Pretty much Village Hall. The standard trustees, village manager, the finance department, if you will, the accounting costs, auditing costs, most of the normal governmental, basically, if it's not in public safety, public works, or conservation, it's in general government.
Thank you.
It's kind of the garbage can for expenditures other than those. Okay.
So what exactly would be public safety and conservation and development? What gets factored into those numbers?
Well, public safety, it looks like it matches our sheriff contract pretty clearly. So,
Yeah, okay,
Right.
thanks. Okay.
Right, about $600,000, a year, the last couple of years.
Right, got it.
public works must be like the snow plowing and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, Ela Township.
Yeah.
Yeah, plowing is one of the biggest costs, snow removal, road signs, traffic and then road paving, road maintenance, things like that. Conservation includes the business and community partners, the incentive rebate, and community development. Does that help?
Yes.
So is that including the $165,000 that basically we collect as an SSA and turn over to the HDLGBA?
Exactly. And
Okay, so that would be the bulk of it.
And
Okay, okay.
the detail for expenditures for the general fund are on page 50 and 51 of the annual financial report.
Okay,
If
thanks.
you want to look at that.
Thanks. Yeah, I
And then
couldn't figure out how we were spending over 200,000 for conservation and development, but if we're the conduit for those monies, so I get it. Okay.
It was pathways, Rita, it's just
Yes.
pathways.
Right.
I wish. I wish.
And then the next page is a graphical representation. You'll see that one of the items is Public Works, and that definitely spiked. And then in the last 3 years have gotten very, very low. I think in some years, the prior auditors may have put some of the capital projects I'm sorry, the most recent years, we might have put some of the capital projects into Public Works because that one has been a little higher this year than in the prior year. So I think there may be a little inconsistency between Public Works and capital outlay, but we can work on that.
I think there's two things going on. One was the creation of the capital projects budget, you know, because it was all smeared together prior to 2017. And the other is that we were trying, like anything, to run things through the tax increment financing district until we looked and said, you know what, no mas, we're done.
That makes a lot of sense. Yep. So moving all those capital project costs to the capital project fund obviously is going to alter that. Okay, on the next slide, we have 5 years worth of revenues, and the detail for this year and budget is on page 49 of the annual financial report. But this does show that some of the taxes, especially sales tax, has reduced significantly since 2017. And income taxes fluctuated a little bit. It had a low of 2017, but it's been somewhat flat since then. And the rest of the taxes seem to be relatively stable.
You know what, but I think this is the sales tax was split, right? So,
Correct.
so you'll see
Yeah,
then that, yeah, go ahead, Ann.
No, you're on the right, you're the same track.
Yeah,
There is
that's why
about
it went down.
$600,000 that used to be included in 16 and 17 that went to the capital projects after 17.
Mhm.
So it's actually, more or less, it's actually somewhat stable.
Yes,
Right.
so we don't have a problem here is what we're saying, I don't think so.
And the revenues in total are fairly consistent with the prior year, 2019, and have come down somewhat since the other 2 years. And again, that's part of the allocation to other funds. Okay. This is a 10-year trend schedule for the advances that the TIF fund owes the general fund and open spaces fund. And it's gone from 3.5 million 10 years ago to 9.6 million this year. It had a pretty steady increase since then. And it's something that I think the village has the biggest challenge in addressing in coming years.
And part of that increase isn't because we actually funded any new projects. It's because we haven't paid any principal or interest.
Right.
Well, a little principal, a little, I guess a little. We now that the refinancing and so forth, we have been able to pay a little bit more.
On the following slide, you'll see the revenues and expenditures for the TIF fund and its fund balance, and how the fund balance deficit has grown from about 800,000 to about $8.4 million. It is interesting to note that in 2020, revenue spiked significantly, going up from 700,000 to 1.2, almost $1.25 million. So the revenues are certainly increasing over the prior years. And the expenditures for 19 and 20 and 18 have somewhat stabilized, so that fund balance actually didn't go down too much in 2020 as compared to prior years. The next slide is a 3-year analysis I think we'll probably grow this next year to 4, et cetera, of the basically a replication of the statement of net position for the water fund. The interesting thing is at the bottom of the slide, working capital, I'm sorry, the difference between current assets and current liabilities has gone up steadily, as has equity. Primarily the net investment in capital assets, which is basically your pipe in the ground and well, the deep well, and net of depreciation. On next slide.
Can you help remind us, Dan? I think we went through some things on the depreciation. Are we perhaps a little behind on the depreciation? No, we're fine. Okay.
I'll show you something on the next slide that's interesting.
Thank you.
So the at the chart on the left, the operating income loss, we show that operating expenses have consistently exceeded the revenues, but the revenue spiked in 2020. That operating expense does include depreciation. And so down below, you'll see contributions and transfers. That's primarily the capital project fund and other funds paying for the water fund's fixed assets. So those are basically contributions of fixed assets from the funds that actually built them. So that's why the net position is positive and has been increasing significantly in the last couple of years. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does to me.
Depreciation was about $200,000, about $203,000 this past year. So
okay,
without depreciation, there would have been a positive operating income. And then the last, oh, that's it. Sorry, I was one.
On the revenues, the bump up in 2020, would that be one-time connection fees probably?
I would have to look that up, to be honest with you. Sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't catch it earlier.
Well, it does show that we're underwater on our water system.
Oh, yeah. One of the questions I asked also, because in their note, they note that we've never done a manager's comments. I can't remember the official name for it. Manager's review. And
management discussion and analysis.
Thank you. And it's something we've asked about before, and I know it's been asked in these meetings before about, well, why is this a problem? Is this a deficit or a deficiency? And Dan, if you wouldn't mind re-answering for everybody, that would be really appreciated.
Certainly. So in our opinion, by the way, I forgot, I should have had a slide for this. The most important thing, we issued a clean opinion, what's commonly referred to as a clean opinion. We refer to it as unmodified on pages 1 through 3 of the annual financial report. In spite of that, we had a note and that simply said that a management discussion and analysis for GAAP purposes is required of governmental entities for governmental GAAP. However, it's not presented, but that does not alter our opinion. We still issue an unmodified opinion despite of that, that lack of presence of the MD&A. An MD&A, for those that haven't seen one, would be a introduction, if you will, that comes after our opinion, but before the financial statements begin, that would show last year's balances and this year's balances of select areas, and then analyze and discuss what why the numbers have changed from the prior year. And then it has a section that the village has the opportunity to describe what may happen in the future, what the village's plans are. The object of it is to allow the village to give it spin, if you will, to the users of the financial statements and explain to the user where you've been and where you may be going and why. So if you have financial statement users that are clamoring for this information and knocking on your door for it, or if you are going out for bonds in the near future, it might be helpful to answer some questions before they're asked by the Moody's and the Standard & Poor's of the world.
How is that
Gotcha.
normally,
I don't
how's
think-
that normally done though? That's the question, right?
How is it done?
Yeah,
There's
I
some boilerplate language that we could provide and then some sample charts and whatnot. But basically you would take this year's statement of net position and statement of activities and show it side by side with last year's and then explain what changed. You do the same for the general fund, show budget, actual, and prior year and explain that. And you are supposed to explain any of the larger funds activities for the year as well.
got it.
It's almost like the recording of the Zoom meeting. I mean, really, we've been making those kinds of comments, I think.
Okay.
Yep,
Mhm.
so it's something that, would that have fallen on our former village manager or that's,
You-
yeah,
It's
it should have done it?
it's generally written by staff, by
Okay.
management, and then we proof it and make and edit it perhaps or give some guidance. We're not really, auditors aren't really supposed to write it. It's supposed to be management's. I
Okay.
have helped some of our clients with it and then highlighted the areas where now you tell us why. This
Okay.
things
Got
like
Sure. And in a village our size or something, you know, with an operating budget in the $4 million range, how common is it that they actually do that?
I would say greater than 80% would of my clients. The smaller the organization, the less chance of it. And what I always tell clients is, who are you trying to impress? Is anybody going to actually read it, or is it addressed more to the board to make sure everybody understands those type the finances as best you can?
Mhm. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. So is it more an exercise to do this? Is an exercise for the management and the board to accomplish this?
Very much so. It would be again, if you feel the need, if you feel the audience would benefit from this, then most certainly you would want to include it in future years. Again, I have lots of clients that are fairly small and they don't include it because, quite frankly, the only time their financial statements are discussed is at board meetings like this. So if the Standard & Poor's and Moody's of the world aren't asking for it and your residents aren't asking for it, then do you need it or not? But it is always very handy to have in order to allow you to allow your management to explain to the outside world the reasons for the variances.
Or to explain to us?
Perhaps, yes.
I have two minor questions. One is in the annual report, I think it's like on page 3 or 4, there's mention made of property taxes. Could you, I'm not sure what that means in relation to.
I told you, I made this comment also, Bobby. It's because in the early on, the TIF is included in the all consolidated.
Okay, then that makes sense. That makes sense then. And then what are franchise fees? I know in my world what a franchise fee is, but I don't know in this world what it is.
Primarily telephone, cable, areas, mostly utilities for which the village has granted more or less the rights to use the right of way. They generally pay a percentage of their revenues.
Okay. Okay, didn't
It's
know that.
primarily telephone and cable.
Like Comcast, right, is one. We get a franchise fee from them, so I'm aware of that one.
Okay. Okay, didn't know that. Thank you.
I would say two other observations. One was the discussion on the pension liability is much more robust this year. And Dan explains that what he's included is much more boilerplate, that's much more standard in Illinois. I don't know if you want to expand from that, but I find it fascinating. I'll just say this because we have zero decision-making on those numbers, zero.
Absolutely right. The IMRF is always described as the one that works in Illinois. If you're going to be in a pension plan, you definitely want to be in IMRF as opposed to some of the other state-run pension plans. The biggest reason for that is you are required on a monthly basis to pay them a percentage of covered payroll for your employees that are members of IMRF. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They dictate to you through an actuarial study annually what percentage of covered payroll you will be paying, and you are required to pay that monthly, or they would take the money from your revenues from the state. They would garnish your sales tax, income tax, etc. It is funded this year at over 90%. And that somewhat fluctuates from one year to the next based on the market value of IMRF's investments. It's measured as of December 31st every year. And if you'll remember, December 31st, 2019 was an excellent time to be measuring your investments. Your 401k might have looked like a 501k, whereas in 2018, your 401k looked more like a 301k. But we did have a 14% approximately contribution rate for the village, IMRF, and it's been over 14%. It was down to 13.96%. And then as a funding percentage, I misspoke. It's 83% for 2019 and jumped from 73% the prior year. So that funding percentage is always going to be fluctuating based on the value of investments at 12/31. And there's a 5-year trend schedules on pages 47 and 48 of the report if you're interested.
The other thing that's different this year versus last year are some things at the very end where we kind of had to talk about the fiduciary funds in a different way. So the funds where, building fees and permits, deposits that are due back to people, things like that, where they're fiduciary, it's not really revenue expense, but we're responsible for holding it. There were some changes that we have to, I guess, put a little more daylight on the fact that we're holding it responsibly.
Right. So in the past, the Builders Refund Bond Fund was its own fund as an agency fund, and you didn't show revenues or expenditures. But there was a new Government Accounting Standards Board statement that went into effect this year that required us to analyze whether or not you controlled the money, if you will. And if you controlled it, then it really wasn't an agency fund. You weren't an agent for someone else. You were in control of the money, even though it might come from someplace else and go out to another entity. You decided whether it went out. So we combined that fund with the general fund, whereas some of the interagency control fund and fees refundable to others, and then of course the SSA for Heron's Landing, we considered those to be your true custodian and don't really control those funds other than acting as a custodian of them.
It's not something I'm concerned about it, but I just thought it would be helpful if anybody felt like reading and wanted and should understand that we're responsible for making sure that change got described.
Right. If you were going to compare last year's to this year, that would be a difference.
You know, the other thing that I think that I commented on when we had that meeting was that, the new auditor did not find anything, wrong with our statements, right? So, this is, it's been a while since we've had, a new auditor, and you kind of went through everything and said, no, you didn't really see anything. Everything looks pretty solid, which was great to hear, right? I'm not putting words in your mouth, Dan, but that's what I heard.
So to elaborate a little bit on that, in the board communication, in the management letter section, we would be required to disclose to you any material weaknesses or deficiencies that we might find during the course of the audit. And those would be items in the design or execution of your internal controls or other areas that, if not corrected, could result in a material misstatement or a significant misstatement in your financial statements. We didn't have any of those. We had a couple of items that we felt that we talked to Debbie about and to primarily Dave about perhaps tightening up a little bit, but nothing rose to that level. And we did have a few prior period adjustments, mostly in the revenue recognition of changing that to be more consistent with your neighboring communities.
You said that much more eloquently than I did, but that's how I heard it. So thank you.
I'm a little more practiced at talking accounting, I guess.
You're muted, Ann, I think, right?
You're correct. I was muted on my phone. Any other comments or questions?
Do we need to make a motion tonight? I didn't see that. What do we need to do tonight?
Generally speaking, legally, you just accept it.
So we need a motion to accept?
Yeah, there's no requirement for you to approve it. So therefore, it's simply accepted.
Can I ask a quick
I would
question?
move. Oh, go ahead,
Oh,
Rita.
sure, go ahead. Rita.
Just real fast. The motor fuel tax that we receive, that's included in the sales tax revenue numbers. Is that correct?
I'd have to look that up. I'm sorry.
I saw it. I don't know where it sums up. Yeah.
Okay.
I
All
thought-
right.
I'm-
That's okay. That's
I
okay.
believe there's a, it's in its own separate fund, Fund 17. And it can be found in the back of the report. It's considered a non-major fund on pages 53 and 54.
Okay.
Fund. The state requires MFT funds to be segregated and you have to account for them separately from all other funds so that the State Department of Transportation can audit them as they do periodically.
And you called that a non what fund?
A non-major fund,
Non-major fund?
non-major fund. So
Got it.
we do a calculation of the total assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenditures of the village. And if the individual funds don't exceed 10% of the governmental type funds, then they're automatically a non-major fund or
I
5% of the village as a whole. And therefore, we have columns in the front of the report for major funds, but then a lump column for the non-major funds. And you can find the non-major funds, which are MFT, business districts, and the pathway grant funds as non-major.
Got it. Thank you very much.
And we call motor fuel tax intergovernmental because you don't really levy or have control over the percentage of the tax or its distribution.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was in the intergovernmental bucket or sales tax.
It's
so-
intergovernmental.
Thank you.
I guess if there's no more questions, go ahead, Ann.
I would move we accept it.
Second.
Okay, so that was moved by trustee Kritzmeyer, seconded by trustee O'Connor. Amy, you're gonna have to take a roll call.
Yep. Trustee Borowski,
Yes.
Trustee Kritzmeyer,
Yes.
Trustee O'Reilly,
Yes.
Trustee Nora,
Yes.
Trustee O'Connor,
Yes.
And trustee Micho.
Yes.
All right, motion carried. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dan.
I have
Dan-
one
Dan,
last question for Dan.
Yep.
Sure.
One last question. Are you going to send us actual paper copies or, because that often happens, so I won't waste going through if you're going to.
Those those have been shipped to Village Hall.
Okay.
And should have been received on Friday, I think.
Yeah, we've got the hard copies at the hall.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Thank
good to
you.
know. I was having a hard time doing it electronically, so thank you.
I agree. It's a large document. It's much easier with paper.
Yep. Perfect. Dan, thank you very much.
Thank-
Thank you.
It's
Thank
great
you.
having you.
Thanks,
and,
Dan.
Nice job. Thank
Yeah.
you.
My
It was
pleasure.
a pleasure working with you.
Enjoy your Thanksgivings, everybody.
You too.
You too.
You
You
too.
too.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the report of the Economic Development Commission meeting from this morning. I know that Roger Goebel's here and Trustee Sarletto, former Trustee Sarletto's here, but Trustee Michaud is probably going to lead us in an update, right?
So I'm gonna, a lot of today's meeting was kind of just checking up on projects we're working on. And the big thing that I really want to take up time tonight is the bridge to business flow chart, which you should have had a chance to look at. And I think the big thing I want to address is the EDC's role in this. I had a good conversation with Mina today outside of the meeting and asked her professional opinion about her, like, how soon does the EDC get involved? And she says when she's looking at site selection or anything, her first contact is always EDC. And I know there's been a little bit of debate on the board, but on that flow chart, you know, in brackets is where EDC potentially could be involved. And I think they're really looking for some guidance and a directive on their role. And so I kind of wanted to open that up to discussion. But I think I kind of came into the EDC not knowing anything. And as I've worked with this group of people and their skills, I think that they can bring a lot to the table in this process as kind of mentors or tour guides through the process. So in my opinion, I'd like to see them get involved pretty early in the process. Not to give an opinion whether a business is the right fit or not. Well, I mean, in a way, yes, guiding them through the comprehensive plan, which they are comfortable with that direction, but also just kind of being a mentor through the process. So I guess I wanted to get your feedback on that. Has anybody had a chance to look at the spreadsheet?
The spreadsheet or the document, Jenny?
The document, sorry.
I sent one back to you all marked up about 6:15. So that's not.
It was great. Yeah,
But I will just say, I'm sorry, I'm walking around putting my dirty dishes away. But I think it would be helpful to have the EDC involved early. I think part of it is also we might spend a little time, even just in workshop with the EDC, just like one small workshop saying, okay, here's how we're viewing this, and make sure everybody's on the same page rather than asking them to self-study and you know, kind of read minds or anything like that. And then I think that the whole idea was to have additional talented arms and legs helping for some of that early stuff. At least that's what I had hoped, that we would have, that additional talented arms and legs so we don't have to do all the vetting.
You know, I'm going to make a comment too, because we have a new village manager potentially coming in too, right? And so the way we bake the cake can change too. So this is one of those things that, you know, in the flow chart, it is the way it is, but perhaps we'll get some new insights from whoever we hire too, that may have done some things differently that'll help us with this effort. So I just wanted to put that out there.
That's a
I
valid.
think that's a good point. Jenny, where is this? I haven't seen it.
It was in the files under its own file, EDC, like, there's the executive session.
Okay, okay, I'll go back then. But I think what Bill is saying is actually a good idea, rather than change this now and then possibly have to change it in 3 or 4 months.
I actually kind of disagree, because I think the EDC has been trying to be helpful, but also trying to read our minds. I understand. It might mean we might change again in 3 or 4 months. I think that for right now, it would be helpful to have them at least start working towards a vision.
I didn't mean to totally say that we wouldn't look at it. I'm just saying, though, that, the way things are, the way it's set up in here was the way it was done, right? And is that the way it will be done? So, and we may get some input from a new manager. Maybe Bill Balling can also take a look at it and give us some ideas, being that, he came from a larger community or worked several communities, and, maybe he has some thoughts too on this as well that might help us.
I think it's important to define an ombudsman, and how that works as developer advocacy can help applicants to sharpen their pencil and focus on development. But I think it's a joint effort. I think certainly an opportunity for a new manager that may be astute in development strategies would be helpful to the village. But also we have a supportive EDC that has an experienced platform on their own. Integrating those two together could be pretty powerful. I think the important point is, I think the theme of creating an ombudsman is valuable to the long role, and will help both the outlying districts, shopping districts, and the core districts in the downtown area.
May I add for a minute?
Yes, please, Roger.
I don't see anybody on the EDC looking at their role as being ombudsman or advocates for any kind of a new business. Our focus has always been the village itself and what's good long-term for the village in terms of growing revenues and having businesses that will keep the village healthy on several levels. My thought is that it would be, at the very least, we'd like to see involvement with some people from the EDC and the village manager, either interim or new, in developing whatever they want and sharing before it gets put into a protocol or a procedure. That's my thought.
Yeah, I appreciate
Roger,
that.
what do you
comment,
mean by
Roger.
before it gets put into a protocol? Could you help me understand?
Somebody in the organization for the village is going to decide how people interested in opening businesses are going to have to go through the process of saying we'd like to, and jump over the hurdles that the village has, whatever they might be. There is, I guess there are some procedures that are written down somewhere, maybe. But I think that there's some feeling that perhaps something that's a little bit more definite and consistent over time might be worth developing. And that's what I am hopefully hearing when Bill says, well, we're going to talk with the new manager about this. So that's, I think, where our commission is thinking.
Okay, thank you.
I can chime in a little bit on my thoughts, and I'm not sure if I'm on the money or off the money on this. I'm certainly open to chatting with anybody about it, but I don't have the impression that there is yet a person on the committee that understands the process enough to be able to help hold someone's hand through the process. And I know probably of the people on the committee, Mina has, I would assume, has had the most experience with this because it's what she does for a living. I'm not sure that her experience is with communities the size of ours. I kind of have the impression that she deals with multi-commission villages where the EDC is indeed their own little world, and they know the process, they understand what the people have to go through, and they're more than happy to help them out and say, okay, here's the next step, so on and so forth. And I'm wondering if it might be something that Jim Hogue could help teach them, insofar as I don't think anybody on the committee has really done that thus far. Maybe the closest would be the experience that Mike Marr had with Mike Sarlito when, they just happened to meet each other one afternoon. I don't think we've had anything since then that involved helping someone, start a business in Long Grove. So maybe just some training, maybe some, I like the idea. I think it was Ann who said a workshop, maybe something along those lines would help bring several members along the way so that one could fill in for another if necessary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think that, what I heard here though, too, this morning, because I always listen in, was, they can add a lot of value to the process, and they're not right now, the way this is written, I don't think they know their place, right? So understanding where the EDC comes into this whole thing, and what they should be doing and how they can help us be more effective at recruiting businesses and so forth. That's really what this is all about, and that's what I heard. So, and I think that's great. That's what we need them to do. And I just don't know, in looking at the process, if I'm even fully comprehending where people move in and out of it, right? Because could require specific zoning and things like that and so forth. And to your point about Village Planner Hogue, who's on the call, yeah, it might be worthwhile to have him share some of his experiences of how he's seen these things come through as it relates to new businesses and buildings and things like that had to get built or whatever. So that may be a good idea too.
Jim is probably the most experienced person.
I see you went off mute, so maybe you'll say something.
I don't know what you want me to say. We have a process, and I think it actually works pretty well. We try to get people on their best path for success, and sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. We've worked on this process over a number of years. Dave and I think, kind of honed it to where it's actually working pretty good. For what it's worth, has a valuable role in identifying what businesses would be potentially the ones we go after. Because we have such a small staff, I think taking a shotgun approach is not efficient and is not a proper or an efficient use of resources. If they could identify, and the comprehensive plan would be a guiding light for this, but if they could identify businesses that have a high potential to bring us revenue, that are in conformance with the comprehensive plan, that can be serviced, then we have a target that we can go after. And by doing that, I think we maximize our ability to try to get the businesses that we want, as opposed to either waiting for them to come to us or taking a shotgun approach and trying to bring anything in that we can. So, my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. And I think the way I heard this too, though, is somewhere along the line, somebody was met, or there was some contact made, and there was some interest about coming to Long Grove. So now what, right? And I don't even know if that's a shotgun approach. It's just somehow through the outreach and effort or whatever, we found somebody that's interested. How do we take them? How do we guide them through the process, right? So that and you're a part of that, I understand, but then the EDC could also help us in some of those efforts as well, right?
I don't disagree. I think they have a role. And when we get just a random inquiry, where do they want to locate? What kind of services are there? Access, as to quote Bridget Lane, it used to be location, location, location. Now it's access, access. So, those are all the kind of things we look at. We try to lay out what the community has to offer where sites could be, give them an honest evaluation of how we think the process is going to go. I don't think we want to string anybody along only to find out they've wasted a lot of time, money, and effort on something that isn't going to happen. What really comes to mind is the multifamily at the CF Industries property. I tried to tell those people that, in my opinion, I did not think that was going to work. They wouldn't listen to me, and it didn't work. That's really an anomaly, but we try to work with people to get them on their best path of success for what they're proposing.
Jim, what if I could ask you, what in your opinion would be the best way that the people on the EDC commission could supplement, cooperate with what you do?
I think having a place for them in our review process would be helpful. After they meet with staff, if they feel like they have a good chance of moving forward, or they would like to move forward regardless of what we have to say, we go to the pre-application meeting. And I think that would be a good place for an EDC member to sit. As part of our pre-application meeting, the Plan Commission chairman, the village president, trustee, are usually on board to try to give the applicant, again, a better assessment of perhaps their potential for success in the community. That's designed to be a safety valve. If they're feeling like, yeah, hey, the community's behind us, this is a great thing, we're getting a green light, if you will, then they can move forward. On the other hand, if they're getting not so much a green light, like maybe a yellow light or a red light, then they've got the opportunity to get out of the process before they put a lot of money into plans, engineering, filing fees, whatever, depending on how far the process would go. So I think the EDC sitting in at that portion of the process might be beneficial.
So
go ahead.
No, just to that's a fascinating answer for me, because it's like, okay, that makes total sense. I'm glad I asked the question. So would it be fair to say that if the EDC in their, because of their efforts, it becomes aware that there is someone who wants to open a business in Long Grove, what you are saying is they, at that initial meeting or conversation, whatever, would suggest that they take their information, pass it along to you, and you give them a call, and or vice versa, but that's where it should start initially, and then the EDC comes in a little bit after that, as you just suggested. Is that sound?
That's correct, Rita, and
Okay.
that would be consistent with the process that we have in place. So we can give them technical information about zoning, facilities, services, all those kinds of things, and give them an analysis. And then as they move forward, we ask for concept plans, and that's what's really beneficial at the pre-application meeting. Again, they don't have to have real detailed plans, but if they can hit all the basic things like access, sewer, water, storm water, how big of a building, all those basic kind of things, and just give us some concepts that are not hard and fast, but a good idea. I think that's the best place for the EDC to jump in.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
My question was going to be, because when I look at this step 3, it's very much what you've described, Jim, where zoning or PUD kind of things, whatever, much more robust on the zoning and planning. But what about including things that don't require new zoning? What's your involvement? I'm thinking, for instance, of that business before Corks. It wasn't new zoning. Whatever where it had been unwind and stuff. So that wasn't new zoning, but they had this business plan. They absolutely needed a video license, and that got pretty far down the road where, somebody could have helped them understand earlier that maybe that wasn't our favorite answer. Or, could they have done it? Could there have been a role for EDC or staff to help get them, I guess, a more of a reality check earlier in the process? I'm not asking you to apologize for that. I'm asking, I guess, really, what is your and staff's role, do you think, in an ideal place where zoning isn't needed?
Okay, and that's the distinction, Ann, and you hit it right on the head there. If zoning is not required, then it really comes down to permitting. If it's a permitted use, they have to bring the property up to the building code for that use. Now, in the business that you mentioned, that was actually a fairly simple task. But we had one that really sticks out in my mind was a bakery that went in downtown, the Patisserie. And the code hurdles that they had to go through to bring that up from its former use, and I think it was a service use perhaps or something, I don't remember specifically, but they had to do a lot of code improvements because they were changing the use, they were bringing in ovens and all this kind of thing, so fire suppression, all these kind of things came into play. That's probably the biggest hurdle when zoning is in place. Now, if zoning is in place but the use is not allowed in the zone, for example, it's commercially zoned like the B1, but they want to propose a use that's not covered under the B1, then they'd have to look at a text amendment. Now, that's not necessarily rezoning, but it is altering our code to allow use that wasn't anticipated in that district. But
Got it, like the Geimer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a temporary use, but very, very similar. But it's usually the building code kind of stuff. Now, the gaming, that was a whole nother issue. At that point in time, I don't know that it was limited. I can't remember, but there was a lot of talk about limiting the number of licenses that would be available. That would be something that we could discuss with a potential user as staff, or that's something that the EDC could talk about very generally if they were looking for a use that was already permitted in a zoning district and no zoning or anything was required.
Hey, Jim,
Thank you. That, it helps me.
Have you seen this outline, Jim, that they're looking at?
I saw the copy that Ann sent really just before the meeting. I didn't digest it. I briefly glanced at it.
Boy, your input
full of my markups.
Appreciated. Yeah, your input would be appreciated. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think that this whole process somewhat depends upon the sophistication of the person who is looking to do a business. And I've sat in with Jim and with Dave when they've talked with a client about setting up in Long Grove, and sometimes they don't even know the question to ask. And that's where people like Jim can draw out from them what they don't know. You know, because especially when they get into the health department requirements and all of that, it does remind me though of the interview with White Oak. The owners of that, and one of the questions that I asked them was, how was it working with Long Grove? Was it a plus or a minus? They had nothing but praise for Long Grove's ability to get them through the requirements in order to open their facility, which I thought I was very pleasantly surprised by that answer.
Two things on that, Bobby. One, we work very well with people that work with us. A lot of times you get people that don't work well with us, and again, I'll point to the apartment people. They thought they could buck the system and just bullhead their way through, and
Right.
It didn't work. And a lot of times when that happens, there's bad feelings, there's bad blood, and those are the people you hear about. You don't hear about the people that had a wonderful, successful experience because they got what they wanted and they're on their way. The people that didn't get what they want tend to be upset. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. You know, there's one part of this process that is very prickly, especially when you're in the downtown, and that's the fire department.
Yes.
they're a problem. Not there, but the requirements are a problem. And I don't think that is communicated really well to potential business owners.
That gets back to the code things that I mentioned, but you're right, fire suppression, and again, with the bakery or the patisserie, that was a huge issue.
Right. Well, that issue with the fire department is still hanging around.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, I feel like I'm 300% smarter just in the last 20 minutes of this discussion than I ever was in the last 3 years. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
So I don't know if we can draw it back in, and go ahead, Jim. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. Just thank you all. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. But maybe we can pull this back in, Jenny, and
Yeah, I think this is, valuable information. It's nice to hear that there are some really key steps that the EDC would add a lot of value, and I would really like to make them a part of this process. So I think that if you haven't had a chance to look at the flow chart, please have a chance and maybe try to give me back your thoughts before the next meeting. That would be helpful. And I don't know, maybe at some point it would be good for us to have another joint EDC board meeting where we can all kind of finalize this, or because I thought that was helpful a couple, 6 months ago or whatever when we did it.
yeah, I mean, I think that we got a little bit of a COVID issue here too that we're working our way through. So it's made this a little bit more difficult, but we're doing our best. We got the village manager and a few things that we need to wrap up this year.
Right.
So maybe that's something that's going to start early next year. Because if you think about it, we've got Tiree Village, a lot on our plate. Yeah.
So
Could I please add one last thing about the EDC?
Yes, Roger, please.
What I hear is the EDC being discussed tonight as a gatekeeper. I don't think any of us really have much interest in being gatekeepers in full or in part. Our focus has always been more on marketing and being a marketing arm to add to the ability of the village to go out and say to people, consider Long Grove. Maybe you won't get in past the gatekeepers, but at least consider it. So if the board wants us to be part of this gatekeeping process, that's fine. I'm sure that we can find people who would be happy to do it, but I didn't think that was our focus.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, go ahead.
Whenever we work with the EDC, it always seems like we have to go step back to square one again and define what it is we want and what it is they want. That's I'm going back to Jenny's suggestion that we all need to meet again jointly and define what's the greatest asset that the EDC has.
Roger, are you saying that your interpretation of this conversation is that we want the EDC members to be gatekeepers?
That's what I heard to be the focus, yes.
Oh,
Or the concern. Maybe not that you wanted them to be, but that was what people were concerned they were going to be, that they were going to get some function in the process of deciding who gets to get in the village or not, which has never been something that we've thought about doing, I don't think.
Mm-mm.
No,
if I contributed to that, that certainly wasn't my intention. It was more that even, to be marketing and or partner with existing businesses and or partner with potential new businesses would be understanding, well, I think, more in-depth understanding. I guess maybe I'm making the assumption that we've been assuming, and to Bobby's point, I think we still feel like we're not on the first square.
Yeah, I have always thought that the function of the EDC was marketing, identifying businesses that could, should, would like to come into the village. And then as a facilitator, working with Jim and village manager, to introduce them, let Jim and the village manager sort of do the vetting and then be a facilitator from that point on. So I think it's terrific we had this conversation because it sounds like not everybody's on the same page, obviously.
It's a good point to stop here, Jenny, because we've got a full agenda. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that took up a lot of time.
No,
but
it was a good conversation, and
Yeah.
we're going to have to regroup on some of this stuff, though.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your comments and your thoughts. End of report.
Yeah, and I'll just say one thing that, Roger, you know that the work that you guys are doing, with the EDC, you've come a long way, and I just want to thank you for it. So may not be all perfect yet, but we're figuring it out as we go along. And so thank you. All right, moving right along. This is a little bit different in order, but and I'm not sure who leads this one, but we have a report of the building department on permit activity. Chuck, were you prepared, or are you going to be discussing that, or is Bill going to do that?
I should be prepared, but I unfortunately am not, and I apologize. I saw what was on the board packet. That kind of went back to what I was trying to stay away from, which was just X number of permits. This is what we took in. I haven't had a chance to, plug all the information I like to plug into a spreadsheet and then turn around and give you guys a little bit more of a financial report regarding the, permitting. So.
Bill, I can give a high level summary on we had a fairly active October, and we like to look at month to month and how it, how we're doing. We had a lot of activity. We had 87 permits of various sorts issued, not a lot of revenue because a lot of it was remodeling and lesser work, but still we have we love to sell big full permits to new houses, and that tends to be where the cash flow is a little bit better. But I think it was acceptable. To Chuck's point, I think one of the things we want to do is try to identify what metrics we can use and what's the business model for the inspectional services. In that light, I did make reference in my notes to the board. We are going to be faced with a decision on our approach to property maintenance inspections. The Village of Buffalo Grove, which has been our contractor, they lost 2 or 3 people to early retirements. And so they've taken a quantum leap to go back to BF inspectional services. And they're going to go contracting, and they're going to phase out the relationship that we have. And I know that their attorney is going to be in touch with Vic just to see what the separations are fairly loose in that relationship. The good news is I said, well, look, we've got to get this fence issue solved that came up at our last meeting. And going into the late fall and winter, we don't get a lot of activity on property maintenance, which is a good thing. But come early spring, we're going to want to find a better approach in terms of what's our best options to do that. We do rely on Mundelein, of course, for our structural, plumbing, and electrical permit inspections on construction. But these property maintenance is always a more sensitive area. So that'll be a decision upcoming for the board, probably over the winter, that will be in position to roll out a new approach on dealing with property management into the spring. But it likely will not include Buffalo Grove as a partner because they're moving in a different direction. No. So yeah, it was. Our activity in October was strong in terms of activity, but our revenues were not substantial because we did a lot more minor permit work than otherwise. So that was kind of the high level overview of where we're standing right now with the building department.
All right, if there's not any other questions, can I move on to the next agenda item? I'll take that as a yes. So now we have a resolution to approve and engage the professional services of Baker Tilly for the executive recruitment of the permanent village manager. So Vic drafted up a resolution. Baker Tilly provided like a letter of understanding and what it would outline that has pricing and everything else like that. And I believe the resolution that we have before us basically gives that we're going to approve to enter into an agreement, and that it gives the ability for Bill and Vic to execute a final agreement so that we can successfully move forward and engage them for the search of a new village manager. And Vic, if I didn't say that right, please correct me.
No, perfect summary.
So I don't know if there's any discussion. I know, Rita, there was an email. I engaged Sharon Klump this morning, I guess it was, about, you had questions about the advertising, and she explained, how they would, what trade rags they normally advertise in. And, but she would take input from us and deciding, where to place ads if, that would get the best response in our particular area and things like that. But I don't know what other questions people might have right now in looking at this.
Yeah, I did have a question about the advertising. And I'm just speaking up because I don't hear anybody else speaking up right now. The header on, I think it was number 3 on page 4 of the booklet, it says we could use advertising in these particular publications. And it doesn't say we will use, it said we could use, and I wasn't sure exactly what that meant. Do we do that as supplemental? Do we do it as part of the overall program? Does it cost us extra money? Does it not? And Sharon emailed back and said they have a budget for those ads, which, if memory serves me, it's approximately
$1,300. Yeah,
$1,300.
Yeah.
I have no clue what one ad costs, and the only reason I ask is just, is in their experience, is that what they do when we're desperate, for lack of better phraseology? Is it something they do as a matter of course? How much does one ad cost? Sometimes, a statewide ad can be $800 depending upon the size and the frequency and so on and so forth. So it's not a big stumbling block for me. It was just a question that I had. And the only question I have, Vic, for you is, or only other question I have is for Vic. Is there anything in their proposal that some other communities would negotiate that we have not negotiated? Or, like number of interviews or sharing of expenses when somebody comes from out of town, is items like that?
I think that their proposal is pretty consistent with what you'd see across the board. One of the things that we're likely to find is that because of the size and nature of the village, and particularly the size of its staff, we will be fishing from a different pond, if you will, than a lot of other communities might. And that will affect, to some degree, how they go about the process, but I don't think it affects any of the terms of the proposal. I think it's just a matter of their methodology. So going back to the prior question of where they're going to advertise, they may, and I would rely on their judgment. I mean, they know what they're doing. They would perhaps look at a different set of publications or outreach efforts for Long Grove than they might for Mount Prospect or, something of a much larger scale.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why that particular paragraph jumped out at me, because I agree with you. I don't think we are the brass ring for a lot of people currently looking. I hope that's wrong. On the other hand, we only need one.
Well, and I think that's really the key point, is that you need to find the right one.
Yeah.
And finding the right one may not be through traditional channels, just because the village has a lot of atypical characteristics.
And characters.
Could I ask a question about the process? The communications between Sharon, will they be primarily with Bill Jacob or Bill Balling, or a combination of two? And what are our expectations on frequency of communications?
Yeah, I think that's the part that, and I can ask Sharon to join us tonight too, because she's going to need somebody to be sort of a focal with on our side. And who should that person be? And then the frequency, I don't know yet. I mean, that's something that I don't know what it's going to require. I haven't gone through this yet with them. So I can't really give you an answer there.
I think, to the extent that you have time, Bill, or that somebody on the board has time, I think it's the board that hires. So it would seem that the primary communication should be there, or in parallel, both you and Bill Balling. But I think at the end of the day, we're the ones responsible for hiring. So I would like to see that the primary communications come to the board or to you.
You mean so every communication should go to every board member?
No,
there has to be a focal. There has to be a focal.
That's what I'm saying is
She's
is
already asked
it
that.
you or is it him? And
That's what we
how-
got to decide.
Yeah.
And we can do that. I know we can do that after we meet with her for the first orientation meeting, if you will, or whatever that is, right? Decide how do we want to do this, right? Based on, she'll lay out, here's how I normally work, and tell us what she needs. And then we can decide, I think we can decide who those people should be, right?
Yeah. Okay.
That's an interesting point. It was one of the first questions that I asked Greg Belowski. Well, when I first spoke with him, I said, how does this work process-wise? And what I understood him to say was that it isn't a committee, it's not a person, it's the board that is involved in every step. So I understand that what the question is, I think, is who's the primary contact person?
Right.
Like who is the conduit? What I understood from Greg was that everybody knows everything. And maybe we're saying the same thing. It's just that it starts with a person and then it's shared with everybody.
I would think on a certain time basis, everybody would know everything, but at some point it's not terribly efficient, and that's why I asked which bill is it going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I just, from my 2 cents, I think President Bill should probably be the point for the board, but the goal should be a 7-0 vote in favor of the best candidate. And how you get there is really the art of the recruiter to make sure that happens. Obviously, this first component, which is kind of testing the culture of the board and your needs and priorities, is going to be really important, and nobody should miss that meeting. But from that point, there's going to have to be some level of efficiency in terms of processing and interaction that should, in my opinion, I would always look to the mayor to be a village president, to be the lead on that, and to make sure that we leave every session or communication with the objective of a 7-0 vote, that everybody can reach consensus on a really great candidate. And that's going to start a really good relationship. So getting everybody involved in every component is going to be difficult. And I think it's going to lead to some misunderstandings. So I think the strongest relationship should be between the consultant and the village president, but recognizing the primary goal is everybody's got to be happy with this search. And that's the goal. Now, not every position gets to that point, but that really should be the goal. And that'll launch a really successful relationship between the board and the manager that can be pulled off. And I'll be glad to assist Bill in, however we move that along, obviously. But I think that would be my recommendation.
That was well stated, Bill. Thank you. I had a different question, which is really on the process of getting them started on getting this contract there. In your notes to us, Bill Balling, you said that it was kind of it could be approved, but it was missing some standard terms that you and Vic would like to work on. I'll just be real candid. The minute you guys start touching it, we're in for $500 an hour. Is there anything standard that could be reusable from this process that we could, because you noted it, you referred to attachment B that was blank. Could that then be developed here and then reused for other purposes beyond this?
And this is Vic. We actually have a standard contract, and we've used it on many different occasions similar to this. Our expectation would be we would share it with Baker Tilly, see if they have any concerns, and then adjust accordingly. I don't see this as a long drawn out thing. It's a matter of that's the mortar to help the bricks fit better.
Okay, I'm good with that. It's just, it wasn't attached, so I didn't know that we had that. It looked like it was still to be created. Thank you.
Well, the other question is, we've done business with Baker Tilly before, so does anything carry over? Or is it just, it's a whole different group?
Well, I believe it's a different sector of Baker Tilly. I think that we have used their engagement letter with our standard contract to create the terms of the relationship. So it shouldn't be a big lift for anybody to craft that.
Okay.
Okay, then I'm good. Are you looking for a motion?
I am.
I would move that we approve and engage the professional services of Baker Tilly with the caveat that we allow the village attorney and village interim manager to finalize the terms of the standard contract.
Okay,
Second.
that was moved by trustee Kritzmeyer, seconded by trustee O'Reilly. Roll call.
All right, trustee Micho.
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee O'Connor,
Yes.
trustee Nora,
Yes.
trustee O'Reilly,
Yes.
trustee Kritzmeyer,
Yes.
and trustee Borowski.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Ann, you're very popular today because I think you're going to be taking us through the treasury report. If you choose to do
Okay.
so.
Yeah, and this is not something that requires any action on our part, so I'll try to be super brief. And I'll be real honest too. I was taking a look at a couple of things that I'd like to talk with Debbie about, our accountant, because I think one thing on our budget got mistranslated. But overall, we're in fine shape. As you see, the budget coverage, and we talked about this in the audit, where we dipped quite a bit into our general fund reserves, and they're climbing back. Last month it was 75% coverage. Now we're at 76. So little by little, as we thought. And I would think as we, get out of construction season, that will continue to go through there. Overall, in terms of revenues, we're doing quite well on income tax and sales tax versus budget. My caveat is we have a funny revenue down that says other revenues, and I think what that should be budgeted up in sales tax. So I'm going to talk to Debbie, and I'll circle you in also, Bill, on.
Could you repeat that,
needs-
Ann? I didn't follow you. It should have been what?
So in our revenues, we have budgeted for the sales tax revenues that we expect. We also have a line item for other revenues, miscellaneous. And in the budget that we approved $6,000 of miscellaneous, which is rather small. In the budget that we're tracking against that's in our accounting software, it appears it's $206,000. I think that $200,000 really belongs in the sales tax budget. And that would in fact then say that we're not 25% ahead, but we're probably close to on. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
the overall revenue number is still the correct number. I just think it's in the wrong slot in
Well,
that
not only
case.
that,
But
the year-to-date
overall,
budget doesn't make sense in either, right? So it should line up
yeah,
year to date. So something's wrong.
yeah. So it's that 200, and what that was when we approved the budget, we knew that refinancing the TIF bond was going to unlock more sales tax that would come out of the TIF and to general fund. That's what that is, and when the way it got translated to the general ledger, I think needs to be tweaked. But overall, we're sort of ahead on income tax. We look to be ahead on sales tax. When we make that adjustment, we might be close to on. we'll look forward to the detail that Chuck wants because we seem to be ahead on building permits. People are staying home and doing stuff, I guess. In terms of expenses, we are over on compensation and payroll, and we knew that was going to be the case. With Dave's departure, we had to pay him out for certain things that were accrued to him. We've taken on Bill Balling, and we've had some other administrative things. So those are a little high on the expense side. Overall, I think everything else, there's one thing on the downtown TIF. You can see that we're in fact running ahead on revenue on the TIF, and some of that is through the refinancing, and some of that is we're running ahead on the TIF, which is good. So nothing else really remarkable. One of the things with my newfound time is trying to figure out a better way to dashboard this so it's got pictures and it's obvious without Ann having to pour through and torture you all with comments on spreadsheets.
I have one question, and that's about Heron's Crossing. I didn't realize that we had an SSA with them. How many years out is that? And do we have to do anything with it?
It's for the water. It's for the Lake Michigan water.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I know it's for the water, but do we do anything other than collect and
no
pay out?
The monies for that, this is Vic, the monies for that are to pay off the original installation of the water system. It's all capital, it was bounded, and as far as
No,
when
I know
was
what
set
it
up,
was. I know what it was. I'm looking for what's the term?
I would have to look it up.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I believe there's probably still about 12 years or more left of those.
Okay, but we don't do anything with it other than collect it.
Correct. The money goes to the trustee of the bond and it's paid off at the bond payment
Yeah.
dates.
Okay.
Yeah, when Dan earlier was talking about agency basis, that's what that is. Agency is where you don't actually you have no decision making on it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
You understand that? Sorry, agent broker. Yeah, I'll look it up and get that number back to you in terms of
I
the
just
remaining
was
term.
curious because it was a surprise.
Yeah, I actually have the resolution. I was just trying to figure out does it tell you the term in it? 30 years. Taxes shall be levied and extended for 30 years, with taxes being collected between 2012 and 2041. Bill Kenyon sent me this because
wow,
there was somebody that inquired. So I actually I had it at my fingertips, Bobby. So there you go.
I'm impressed.
Good.
And
Thanks,
here
Bill.
I was going to cut your salary to make our numbers better, but now I won't.
Yes, thank you. Pretty funny.
But at this time, end of report, unless there are any questions.
None for me. So thank you.
Okay.
Let's move on. The way the agenda is set up is we've got the report of the village engineer, Jeff Perry, and it's really, I believe, the status of the repairs to the historic Long Grove covered bridge. And I don't know if we have time to talk about the local road idea, Bobby, but that might be a good time to do that too. So maybe Jeff, you could take it away and give us an update.
Do we have to approve the treasurer's report?
No, we don't. No.
Okay.
Yeah, we only approved the bill paying. We did that last time, Amy. This one is just the report.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for
Just
asking,
checking.
though. Yeah, thanks for keeping me on my toes. Thank you.
I just don't want to have to figure out how I deal with it later.
Yeah, no,
All
I
right.
appreciate it. Thank you. Jeff, take it away, please.
Okay, the bridge. At the last board meeting, we talked about getting the bridge fixed up with the timber facades for by Thanksgiving for the Christmas holiday season. After the last week's board meeting, Trustee Nora, Trustee O'Reilly, and myself met Jim Carmichael with Carmichael Construction out on site last Tuesday to finalize the details of the repairs, not so much the timber boards, but the steel trim plate. As we had talked about and is included in the board packet, there will be a 9 3/4 inch by 3/8 inch steel trim plate mounted on the cover right at the opening that the timber will then be above. So if any vehicle comes in contact with the bridge, they are going to hit this steel trim piece plate first. It's going to be on both sides of the bridge, 10 feet long. It will have a beveled edge, which has a little bit more of a point on it than a blunt edge, and it's going to be painted black. So after our meeting on Tuesday, we got a proposal from Carmichael Construction to put the trim plate up. Just stepping back a step or two, the timber boards that have been damaged, those are both subject to insurance reimbursement, and those proposals had been approved by the former village manager, Dave Ledspike. This new proposal that we got last week for $5,671.50 is for the steel trim piece on both sides of the bridge. Earlier today, interim manager Balling approved that proposal under his spending authority. In talking with Carmichael Construction, they're not going to be able to get the work done this week, unfortunately, due to the holiday, but they are procuring the materials. They'll be on site early next week to make their final measurements, just make sure everything's going to fit together the way they envision it will be. And they're going to be doing the work late next week, finished by the 4th. So unfortunately, we're not going to get it done by the Thanksgiving holiday, but they are moving very quickly on that. So that I'll pause
Jeff?
there if there's any questions or discussion.
Yeah, Jeff, Chris, have a question. So if a big box truck hits the bridge going forward after the repairs and modification, is there any guarantee that the timbers aren't going to get smashed to smithereens still? You know, I'm thinking like a refrigeration unit on top of a truck that's over the cab hitting the wood, not hitting the steel. Are we saving the timbers at all? Or are we still going to be replacing timbers down the road? Has anybody gone through that? That's first question. Second question is, if we start welding on the bridge, do we strengthen or do we weaken the metal at all, like annealing? Has any metallurgist looked at it and ensure that we can weld on that thing without damaging what we already have?
Okay, certainly. So as far as the timbers, the steel edge is going to protrude a 1/2 inch from the timber cover. So hit that first. Is it going to guarantee that the boards will never get cracked? That's not a guarantee I don't think anybody can make. I will go back to the design of the steel frame. You know, that's designed, you know, you've got a box truck moving 20 miles an hour. That's what it's designed for. The memo from the design engineer from November of last year. So will the timbers never get busted? No, that's not a guarantee that I would make. Is this an effort to protect them? Absolutely. As far as the welding of that, part of the discussion that I had with Carmichael Construction, you know, both on site with Trustee Nora and Trustee O'Reilly was how to affix that to be secure. And then the follow-up discussions were the welding and leaving it to them as the professionals of that trade, you know, concerns, and does it still meet the intent going back to that 20-mile-an-hour design approach? Is this going to serve us to protect the cover and maybe as an offshoot, you know, inflict or cause damage to a vehicle? And their response was yes.
So I'm not sure what you actually just said. So we don't really, I guarantee maybe is too strong of a word. What's the likelihood probability that a big box truck hitting the timbers still isn't going to crush the timbers? I mean, are we guaranteed to always hit that steel plate and stop that truck before that refrigeration unit goes through the timbers or not? I mean, you know, what's the prediction? What do we think is going to happen?
I think there's a 95% chance that the wood will not get hit, the timbers won't get hit. Honestly, my concern is a large van with ladders stacked on top. If that ladder is hanging over the roof of the van, it is possible that that would be the first thing that will come in contact with the bridge. And then I guess at that point, maybe all bets are off. But this is kind of like, I'll say it's step one to some of the other things we're also considering. But we think this is a real important aspect of the fix.
All right, thanks,
Bobby
guys.
and Jeff, if you want to jump in and add anything.
No, I think that's a great comment, Chuck, that this is step one of maybe many, hopefully not too many more, so that we can help this bridge not get hit.
Well, we're still also
If
looking
our
at,
presence was any guide, while we were out there at 8:30 in the morning, we had one truck that went through and he had maybe an inch for his ladders to not hit the bridge. And then we watched the box truck that, by God, if we had not been standing in that bridge, he would have come through. I
You
know
would have
he
tried.
Yeah, he tried really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
he
you
would've
know, I
torn
mean,
it
he
up.
was so tall, he would have gotten stuck at the steel.
Yeah, but he was thinking. He
Oh,
was thinking
yeah.
about it.
Yeah, he certainly was.
we're still looking at the monitoring security issues as also the traffic control issues. And if we move to some sort of electronic signage as a component of the alerting system as well. Again, we're somewhat price sensitive and also aesthetically sensitive to that issue. But you know, it's one of the challenges of bringing a 19th century infrastructure facility into the 21st century that it wasn't anticipated when the historic bridge was built that it would have to endure this kind of height and pressures that is out there. I mean, I don't think you want to look at more steel on the face. I think it'll detract dramatically the appearance of the bridge, which is one of the things that's important to the village and to the downtown district. But you know, hopefully get people's attention and get fewer vehicles that could cause damage in there is good. And this is a pretty good piece of armor. It's certainly going to cause a lot of damage on the truck if it hits. There are those examples. These aluminum ladders could chip a few pieces of wood before they fly off the top carriers. But again, identifying and monitoring and retracting, you know, we basically got a full reimbursement on all of the lumber component through insurance claims that we were able to prove up. So that was, you know, that's a good part of it as well.
Speaking of insurance,
reimbursement on the most recent damage?
I think we've got about 11. I want to say we've got all the wood covered, Jeff. We got about 11 grand of lumber we're buying. And I think that was all redeemable from claims that we put against the insurance of people that caused the damage. And frankly, I don't know if that's the full amount or we get more than the full amount, which we can apply some to the steel, even though the steel was not damaged by itself. It was great, but not damaged.
Have we identified?
have we been reimbursed on each accident that's occurred? I mean, do we get everybody?
Well, I think we've got enough. I think when Dave wrote signed the POs for the timbers, I think he had commitments from at least 2 insurance carriers to cover that. Jeff, can you help me with that?
It's been hit 10 times. It's been
I'm
hit
not
at
sure
least
I'm
10
not sure we've got claims. I'm not sure we've got pending claims more than that. I'm not sure we caught the people. It's possible.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Jeff, can you shed any light on that for me?
Bill Balling, you're correct that when Dave signed the work orders for the timber, he had sent them to get, prior, authorization's not quite the right word, but it's kind of the flavor of getting the insurance companies to kind of, see the number and so they can expect it. And then after, the expense is made, gets reimbursed from the insurance company. The 11 grand that Bill Balling mentioned, that covers all of the timber on each side of the bridge. So, those first two accidents, did the most damage to the timber boards. They had been hit subsequent times since that second accident, but it was more what I would say, kind of adding more damage to the already damaged boards. And those boards are continuous all the way from the bottom of the opening all the way to the roof line. So even though it was damaged a little bit more, it was already contracted to be replaced by one of those first two hits.
Okay, so we're not catching them. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it's been hit and run kind of stuff for a couple of them, because I don't
Okay,
think we've got 5 or 6 claims pending.
Because Jesse is filming them all the time. I mean,
Yeah,
he's
they've
got his camera on all the time.
And that most of them have been ticketed too. So, yeah.
Well, I never have seen how the funding for, or how the ticket works and what we get out of it, if anything. And so I wanted to mention one thing, Jeff, about the steel that's being put in, is that the opening is being enlarged somewhat on the edges, that curve is being raised.
Correct. So like I mentioned, the steel piece is 12 feet long. It will be strictly horizontal, welded to the beam that's already out there. So that part of the bridge opening, the middle 12 feet, will be horizontal, and then the wood past that will be curved in the ellipse to meet the covers and what's out there now. So it will look like a bigger opening.
Yeah.
It's going to look more like what it used to look like.
Yeah.
Honestly,
exactly.
it was because it was a flatter.
It was flatter, correct.
Middle section. So,
Bill, do we have vendors identified for estimates for security cameras?
No, I've got to get some of those in for you, because there's 2 parts of that. One's a security camera, and the other is if there's a traffic engineering option to alert people more, either through solar lighting or whatnot, that this, don't get across the bridge. Trucks forbidden. So, no, that's us may present it to you, Rita.
Does it have to be an RFQ, or do we just identify?
I was going to call 2 or 3 vendors and just have them, tell them, here's a problem, come up with a solution and a pricing for me, because we're trying to write a spec around something that's, fairly high technology. I'd say, let's go to school off of the proposals and say, give us your best shot at a proposal. And then we may go to phase 2, or we may find something that's really attractive to us that we think will work and run with it.
Could we work on it, each of those simultaneously, where we get some numbers on the cameras and numbers on,
Sure.
Flashing signs or
Yeah.
fireworks or whatever it is?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that Bobby, Jeff, and I talked about was the signage that says, $750 fine. But we know that can be larger based on how many actual violations they racked up during that, one incident. Vic, I'm kind of looking to you. Can we make that number larger, legitimately larger? Because I think if you see a sign that says $3,000 fine or up to $3,000 fine, you might catch a little bit more attention. I just don't know what's legal.
Yeah, our authority is for a maximum of $750 per violation. I'm not quite sure that even if we said $1 million, that it would necessarily make much of a difference. I think that insofar as the signage goes, we have some standard requirements that we have to meet if they're going to be in the right of way. And I don't believe that, and maybe Jeff has a little better insight on this. I don't know that I've ever seen an IDOT standard sign that says $750 fine, but you could get hit with multiple violations if you hit the bridge. And that's really the difficulty. But I don't know that the fines has been the thing that has kept people from hitting the bridge, nor do I think that a bigger number will keep people from hitting the bridge.
Yeah. Well, they certainly ignore the no trucks or buses signs. So
Yeah. I think learning to read would be a good first step, but we can't control that either.
can't fight
Jeff,
stupid.
where are we with the stop sign?
So that's the same thing that Bill was mentioning, and I've done some research on that. And Bill Balling, one of the companies that is a leader in that thing is Traffic Control Corporation. But I've talked to those guys, and also I talked to Deerfield about some of the process they went through with how they came up with protecting their underpass bridge. And I got some costs that I'm just not ready to share with the board, because I think there's some fine tuning that needs to happen, because costs of over $20,000 per side to put up a laser beam with a stop sign with LED lights, that's crazy to me.
Okay, I'm going to call Glenbrook Hospital tomorrow, because they've got 4 or 5 of them in their parking lot, and let me see what I can find out from them, because they're solar powered. They've got sensors so they're not on until the car approaches, and so I'll do that.
Yeah, the stop sign for the.
Was it
Yeah, the stop
Glenbrook,
sign.
Bobby? I'm sorry.
What?
Was that Glenbrook you said?
Yeah.
Wow.
Glenbrook Hospital, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think they have laser detectors associated with the
No,
heights
they
of the
don't.
vehicles.
No, no, no.
So I have a funny feeling that that's a big part of the money. I could be dead wrong on it, but I think that might have an impact on the dollars that
The
Jeff just threw
impact
out there.
of these signs when you're driving and you approach them. I took videos of them, but unfortunately it was in the sunlight and it doesn't work. So I need to go at night and do it. But when you approach and those things blink on, you can't deny it. You just cannot drive through them without realizing what you're doing.
Yeah, and the signs that the LEDs start blinking when a car's within X number of feet, those and solar powered, those are fairly straightforward. It's the driver, the cost, as Chuck correctly alluded to. When you're trying to get those LEDs to trigger off of a height activation sensor or cutting a laser beam, that's what drives the cost up, and that's what I've been trying to fine tune the cost on.
Yeah, when I talked to Deerfield last year, I asked them about their super fantabulous stop, back up, do not proceed, and stop now. They told me it was 150,000, and I presume that's 75 per light for each side of the bridge. And even then, they still get trucks hitting the overpass.
Well, that's been my concern from the get-go in this. I want to see us do things that are reasonably priced, that have some impact, not 100%. We're not going to get 100%, but a reasonable percentage. And then if we need to change things, it's easier to do. It's like Chuck and I believe that the signage, as we've suggested it be done, should be periodically changed. because you quit seeing it after a period of time. But quite honestly, I think our major thing that we can do that's going to protect this bridge is to make that a local traffic only road, so that Google and all the mapping systems quit sending traffic through there.
I agree, Bobby. I think that's going to go a lot farther to prevent
Yeah.
this stuff. Because once they're on that road, they seem to think, well, hey, Google said it or Waze said it, and let's give it a go.
Yeah.
You know?
So are we at a good
And if
stopping
you
point?
think
Go
about
ahead, sorry.
safe,
Go ahead, Bob.
what?
No, go
No,
ahead.
I was
Complete your
going to
thought.
say there's another aspect to having it local traffic and keeping people who don't know the area well. Is that intersection at Old 53 and Robert Parker Coffin Road is deadly. I mean, well, it literally is deadly. Has been in the past. And if we can keep people out of there, I think it's the smartest thing we could do.
Yeah.
I was just going to say
Making that
that.
wild
know
left
if-
turn, you mean?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Either way, that's a terrible place to go. And I'm there all the time, and I don't take that route. I go up to the light only because it's safer. I don't know if Aaron is on this call.
He's on the call.
He is.
Yep.
He knows. Aaron knows more about the GPS than I do.
Well, the idea is the GPS systems won't originate or terminate, or they won't send you down that road unless your destination or your origination falls within that road. So for example, if it was designated one local use only between Robert Parker from 53, say, to the crossroads, then GPS is not going to route you that way. It'll take you to the stop sign, unless you're actually going somewhere in that span. The other thing is it's easy to undo. You know, you do it, if it doesn't work out like you think, you can undo it later.
Mm-hmm.
So what is needed?
We need to do it.
Didn't we start some
when?
of that already, though? Didn't we start some of it?
I don't know.
Denise
We
is here.
did.
We ever
Bill-
did paperwork
Yeah.
on it.
Bill,
Well,
we
Denise-
did,
Yeah.
we did start it. Yes, that's, I think I was just looking at an email from October 15th. I had spoken to Peter Schoenfeld through Lake County GIS, the analyst, and they, here's a quote. He said that, because I had sent him, the bridge restrictions, and then also kind of the idea that Bobby had for the local traffic only, that we're trying to prohibit trucks and buses. And so his response was that Matt's only option to code RPC to prohibit trucks and buses leaving only vehicular traffic was to call RPC local traffic only. And that was the only option available that wasn't already checked. So essentially with Google on our behalf, Lake County the GIS analyst has already submitted that request. The problem is Google takes forever. And so he said that issue, they actually had met with just the day prior with Google Maps. They had like a meeting with lots of municipalities, and pretty much everyone was complaining about the same thing. So that's kind of where we're at. There is one more step that we can take, that we are now set up with Google Maps partner. And I was holding off on that because it's a way that Peter Schoenfeld had told me that we could actually do our own basically input for the local traffic only. It's like almost like if we both are doing it, there's a better chance that it'll get done. They've already done it with something called Here Technologies. It's more of a local traffic partner that they thought was important to set that up with. So that is already set up as local traffic only, and that can be changed, anytime if we don't want that. So it is in process. They said they would, Peter said he would contact me when, he found out anything, but he said this could take months and months and months, like even up to a year to even make this change. So that's kind of where we're at with it.
Well, I still think we should officially make it local traffic only, to make it as quick as possible. They managed to do it when we closed the bridge. So let's make it official, and it certainly can't harm it.
Well, from my standpoint, as a sort of resident or advocate, what would help me is if we could get a sign posted. Because if we can get a sign posted, then I can take a picture of the sign and I can start lobbying Waze and Google and the GPS monitors to update their systems. And other residents can do the same. So we're not relying completely on the administration back end to get it done.
And Aaron, did you say we do need basically an ordinance for that? Because I know Dave had discussed the fact that we didn't need any kind of ordinance to make the changes through Google and the different platforms, but for the actual signage, it would require an ordinance, correct?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
You may know.
Vic?
With respect to an ordinance, the ordinance doesn't have any effect until you notify people, which would require a sign. As far as the converse, if we are simply placing the sign to afford notice without intending to write tickets on it, we don't need an ordinance for that. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that we keep the sign there indefinitely because it would be inconsistent, but we may want to test the waters to see what happens, and we may want to do that by ordinance with the sign. There are some potential risks if we establish a local traffic only regulation on a permanent basis, unless we have all of our ducks in a row in terms of both the justification and the affected drivers and areas. It's not quite as simple as saying local traffic only, because what is local, who's affected by it, how it's measured, are all questions that ultimately will need to be determined and justified. So one of the things that we may need or may want to do is to put it on temporarily to see what, if any, impact it has on impacting the bridge accidents. If we put it on temporarily and we see that there is a dramatic impact on, or dramatic reduction on the impacts onto the bridge, then that would give us the type of justification to make that permanent. So that may be, from a legal perspective, the safest and most justifiable approach. And it may give us some empirical data that would allow a more permanent approach to it.
You don't think that being hit 10 times is justification for doing something different than what we did 3 months ago?
Well, I think that what we don't have is whether those 10 hits were people who were coming from a downtown store and leaving town, or coming from someplace else to downtown. And those are clearly local.
But, and who's going to ask us this? Who cares?
Well, I can only tell you that there have been actions brought against other local governments on that basis that have led to civil rights challenges, and there's a risk at that. So I think that if we're going to make it a permanent restriction, we should have solid data. If we want to try to get some data, we put it in temporarily for that very purpose.
I support that, everyone. Getting a sign up there, local traffic, local only, and getting it going. Aaron can then start messaging it out and at least we can get some data points. Bobby, does that work for you?
It's better than nothing. You know, we're gonna talk this to death.
I know.
And the damn bridge is gonna bam, 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 over
can
and
I-
over again because
Yeah, can I show you one thing, if I may? I don't know if you all saw this, but you know, this is this caught my eye in the Sunday paper.
Right.
Yeah.
oh, isn't that awful?
So
Oh
it's
my gosh.
so
Oh.
I'm going to be glad when it's cleaned up. And it was I opened up the paper and I still get it delivered, and you know, this is what I saw. So you know, on Sunday. So it's cool that we've got some press. The downtown's working to get folks in the downtown, and there you go. It's got to get cleaned up.
Yeah, and so it can get hit again.
Yep.
No, we need to move forward with things. You know, we've been, you know, week after week after week after week is very frustrating to watch this. But and Chuck and I noticed it, especially, and Jeff, is that every time you go out there, you notice another bang on it.
Yeah.
Yep. So I mean, Bill, do you have direction? I mean, unless anyone objects, do you have direction from the board to just post some local signs where I think, I don't know if it's Jeff, Perry, or Bobby, or Chuck thinks appropriate?
Yeah, and this is basically inbound off of, well, you don't want local traffic in your downtown district, right? You want it inbound from 53 is the target.
That'd be a
Or is it
good
both
starting
sides?
point.
Good start.
Yeah, because you got a big sign out there that's on 53 that says Long Grove Business District,
Mhm.
pointing right in there. That would probably.
Yeah, but they're going there from GPS. We watched them the other day. They're reading their GPS as they're going through.
Yeah, but we'll get some sign placement recommendations out and get them posted. See what happens.
I think we were just surprised at the number of car traffic at that time of the day. It was, you know, almost as much as you'd expect to see on Old 53.
Yes, and it was obviously a cut through from 83.
Yep.
Bam, through there.
Yeah, we
A
have.
lot of traffic.
I have to get out onto Robert Parker Coffin Road from our gravel road, and it's even though we have a local, don't block driveway, there's times I just can't get out because it's so busy. Such a cut through.
Mhm.
All right, so we're at a good point. Can we move
This
on?
is Dick. If I could just ask a quick question,
Sure.
are we looking to also have an ordinance to back those signs?
I thought we said we would experiment and get the data and
Okay.
then go from there, right?
Because
So-
I wasn't sure if it was just going to be the posting or not. Okay.
Yeah, let's just
Now,
do
what's
that.
the best way to gauge the effectiveness? Should we get some type of traffic counter device out there? Jeff
Maybe
Perry?
it's on how many times the bridge gets hit.
Well, I don't think it's going to have any effect until it hits the GPS systems. So the first thing I would look at is, when do the GPS systems change?
I agree.
Fairly easy to monitor Google.
Mm-hmm.
We're walking in circles.
Yeah, but I agree with Aaron. I think you have to, I've fought Google before. It's so frustrating. And if we have that local sign only, we have more ammunition to push them to do it faster. So every one of us should every day get on Google and make a request to change it. There's a way to do it. I can share it with you.
Please
Sure,
do.
we'll
I'll
do.
be happy to.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you have to log into Google, go into the map, click it, and then you can, make adjustments to either name or, that this is not a thoroughfare or whatever. So there's a way to do it.
Okay, are we at a good point where we can move on?
Yes.
Keep us moving. We've got a few other items on the agenda tonight. I don't know how long these are going to take. Hopefully not long. The next several items have to do with adopting the tax levy for various locations in the village, various SSAs. So the first one is for the tax levy for the village of Long Grove. Commons at the corner of 22 and Old McHenry Road. So, you know, the only question I have on that is, where did we get the dollar amount for the assessment? That was my only question.
That comes from the original establishing ordinance. As you know, Long Grove Commons is up at 22 and Old McHenry Road. When that came in, the village was concerned about additional impacts on police services and related services for that development. So the special service area was established. I believe it's a 20-year term per lot, but the term doesn't start for any lot until they have a certificate of occupancy. So I believe there's one lot that still is not yet built. And the lots that you see on the ordinance are at different stages in their 20-year period for paying the special service area taxes. And the amount is based on what was originally established. There is an escalator in it and evolves from there.
I just had a concern, was that one the right amount? In looking at the resolution from last year, and I discovered it right before the meeting. Is it lower than it should be? Or is it the same? Maybe it's exactly the same.
I believe it's the same. And
Yeah, it's 25, 4, 11, 51. Okay, it's exactly
Yeah.
the same then.
Yeah.
Okay. So we didn't raise it this year. Okay. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Do you need a motion?
Sure do.
I would make a motion to approve adopting the tax loss levy for SSA number 2.
Moved by trustee O'Reilly,
Second.
seconded by trustee Nora. Roll call, please.
All right, trustee Borowski,
Yes.
trustee Kritzmeyer,
Yes.
trustee O'Reilly,
Yes.
trustee Nora,
Yes.
trustee O'Connor,
You're on mute, Rita.
Yes, and yes, and yes.
We can only have one yes, though.
and trustee Micho.
Yes.
All right, motion
good stuff.
carried. Thank you. The next one is consideration of an ordinance adopting the tax levy for the Village of Long Grove Special Service Area. This is the downtown historic business district for the promotion of tourism and economic development. Now, there was some discussion about, there is some information that we're looking for as far as a budget, how the money was spent last year, which we haven't received yet.
Really?
I have no interest in, I don't know why we would discuss this, Bill. I mean, we've been nastier to the cultural people. I don't understand why we would discuss this at all without an accurate tax roll, without a program budget, without a program report, after all of the work Bobby and they did last year about hammering that out. Sorry, I know I just came on hard, but I don't understand why we even talk about it when we have nothing in hand.
Well, okay, so if I understand correctly, and Vic, because I asked this question of Bill, he contacted you, right? In that, you know, we can go ahead and pass the resolution tonight, but we don't have to hand any money out until we get those items that are missing. And that way we don't clog a future meeting. But, you know, we have to, you know, hold to it that we won't issue, you know, give any money out until we get that. So Vic, I don't know if you want to comment on that or not, or.
The special service area is independent of the downtown, at least formally. And that money is for the village to use to promote the downtown. We have traditionally done that literally since the SSA was established through an agreement with the Merchant Association and its various names over time. And the agreement that was worked out last year and signed at the very early part of 2020 says that their funding is subject to their doing 3 things. To my knowledge, none of them have been done, namely developing a special tax roll, which is for this ordinance, providing a budget and providing a report of their programming. As far as the special service area tax roll, the ordinance before you simply replicates what was the tax roll for last year. So there's no increase on it. And in fact, the last couple of years, the downtown has asked for no increase. And that number that's in the ordinance is consistent with the establishing ordinance and with past practice. But that money comes to the village, and we only disperse it to the downtown based on, previously we were doing it based on an agreement that had expired. Now we have a current agreement, and it is specific that we don't respond, or I should say we don't disperse until they've responded to their obligations as I've outlined them.
And I would add, we made it really simple. The reporting that is necessary is really simple. So I'm with you, Ann, but I like the fact that we can pass this along and hold it until they comply.
I would
All
add
right,
one timing issue, and that is we have to have this passed and filed with the county treasurer before the last Tuesday in December. So we can't really wait for them if we want to have the money. But we can wait for them to deliver before we give them the money.
It's let's go ahead with this, and then we'll talk about compliance.
I understand, and I support that, and I recall that we have to get this done in December to do that. And just as long as, I mean, Bobby worked very hard on all of that and on getting that. And even then, I thought it should have had more in it, but I thought it should have had more in it. And even the simple stuff isn't complied with. There is also a provision to be able to look at the accounts.
Bill, you had a comment too?
Yes, I spoke today with Jesse DeSoto and kind of explained the requirements of this, of the interagency agreement between ourselves and the Business Association. And we set up a tentative target date of getting this information into us by mid-month, by the 15th of December. So we can at least have it on file and evaluate it. And then that would allow us to file the tax, the tax levy for this, because it would create a substantial hardship to the association to lose almost $160,000 from their annual budget. But they could lose it if they don't comply. So we figured the best course of action is to work it out soon, get the documents filed, get the reporting aligned to what is required and expected so that it doesn't become an issue when the taxes start coming in. Then the other issue is that I don't think we've paid enough attention to right now is the method of disbursement of these funds and to the association, either by reimbursement request or warrant of some sort that would provide a direct relationship between costs incurred and financial support. So that would help I think overall the credibility of the process. So, but there's a high risk to the association if we don't pass this ordinance, and it would have if they're bouncing back post-COVID in 2022 or 2021, they're not going to have a lot of money in play to do that if we don't pass the ordinance. So. I did ask Jess to join this call. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Bobby.
I'm sorry. During the discussions previously, like last year, they were flush with money. And so this was a totally different story than it is today. They're hurting, I'm pretty sure. And so I would think that compliance will be, should be swift.
I would think, I mean, the thing that has to get done by the deadline Vic identified is identifying the tax roll. And the fact that we don't have a current one, I think in putting names on it, I think it might hurt Jesse the most because he took that building down. But
yeah,
because they've been allocating it on a square footage basis. So whether or not we even get the program report and disperse the money, but we have to do the stuff now to get the
Yeah.
taxes to the door.
Yeah. I would make a motion to adopt the tax levy for the Village of Long Grove Downtown Service or Special Service Area number 3.
Moved by trustee O'Reilly, seconded
Second.
by trustee Micho. That's a roll call.
So is that contingent on anything or not?
Oh, yeah, make sure with it's, Vic, help us with that part of it, right?
The motion itself is not contingent on anything. It'll be once we get the money, that's already set up as a contingency in the agreement. They don't get the money until
Yeah.
they perform.
Okay, good.
This just allows us to get the taxes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Trustee Micho,
Aye.
trustee O'Connor,
Aye.
trustee Nora.
You're muted.
I think you're on mute.
All right, move to, go
Aye.
ahead. Yes.
Sorry.
You're good.
There we go. Trustee O'Reilly,
Aye.
trustee Kritzmeyer,
Aye.
and trustee Borowski.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. The next one is the consideration of an ordinance adopting the tax levy for the Village of Long Grove Special Area, SSA number 4. This is the Illinois 83 Properties Deep Well Water System.
This is the one that's been in place in Sunset Grove for a long time. Since 08.
2008. I would make a
I move
motion
that-
to, go ahead.
Go ahead, Bobby.
I was going to make a motion adopting the tax levy for the Village of Long Grove Route 83 Water Special Service Area number 4.
Okay, moved by
Second.
trustee O'Reilly, seconded by trustee Kritzmeyer. That's a roll call.
Trustee Borowski,
Yes.
trustee Kritzmeyer,
Yes.
trustee O'Reilly,
Yes.
trustee Nora,
Yes.
trustee O'Connor,
Yes.
and trustee Micho.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. The next one is the last tax levy, SSA number 6, for the, this is the downtown Long Grove Old McHenry Public Water System SSA. Anyone want to make a motion or any discussion?
I would make a motion adopting the tax levy for the Village of Long Grove Downtown Water Special Service Area.
Moved by trustee
Number-
O'Reilly. Yeah, number
Number
6.
6.
Yep, you got it. Number 6.
It doesn't have a number, number 6.
Second.
Okay, that was seconded by trustee O'Connor. Is that right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep. Moved by trustee O'Reilly, seconded by trustee O'Connor. Roll call.
Okay, trustee Micho,
Yes.
trustee O'Connor,
Yes.
trustee Nora,
Yes.
trustee O'Reilly,
Yes.
trustee Kritzmeyer,
Yes.
and trustee Borowski.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Okay, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Why don't we have a tax levy for,
Heron's Landing? Heron's Landing?
Landing?
I think it's set by the resolution. It's just permanent, right?
When we established when we passed the bond ordinance for authorizing the bonds, that also included the tax levy. So that's handled until the bonds are retired.
Okay.
All right. Let's, this is the time for the village and president and trustee reports. So it's kind of a blob of items on here right now. So maybe we'll just go around the horn really quick and see if anyone has any updates. Maybe that's the most effective way to do this. I don't know if we'll follow the items on here, but Bill, there may be some things you want to comment on. I'm not sure yet, but and I think we may even talked about several of them. So let me just go around the horn. Trustee Kritzmeyer, do you have anything?
We had the second version of the joint review board for the South Gateway TIF hearing. with a different set of characters. Our friend John Hitchko from District 96 came, as a couple of other taxing bodies. They had some questions. It proceeded fine. We're moving ahead towards a public hearing on December 15th.
Thank you. Any questions for Ann?
I was surprised Brooke wasn't there.
Me too. Me too. Trustee Michaud,
No, I've spoken.
you have spoken. I like that. Trustee Borowski,
I think we need to get the draft of the Lake County Sheriff's Agreement on the agenda and start moving that to open discussion and move that to conclusion. Barring any other ideas that anybody can come up with. And and Vic also reviewed the Swalco contract for the oh my goodness, the clothing, the textile deposit
yep.
bin. Yeah.
Yep.
And really it was pretty mundane with the exception of a time requirement that Vic suggests we consider asking Swalco to accept in terms of the number of days or the amount of time it'll take the provider to pick up material should it overflow. But I'm not overly concerned about a time requirement, because if it overflows too much and becomes a nuisance, we can easily pull out of the deal too. So I don't know if it's a big concern, but anyway, that's
I did speak to Walter Willis, the executive director, about that very issue. And he says there's a heavy burden on the contractor to make sure it never happens that way. Because I was asking about measurement, how do we know when it's full? And he says they put a special burden on the contractor so that will not happen. So there'll be an assist from the contractor themselves on that.
When do you anticipate it'll be in place?
we've got to sign the contract first.
We just got to sign the agreement and that'll get the wheels in motion. So it could be, however long it takes to get a bin dropped, wherever we tell them to drop it.
And the location, I think we still want to firm up, I think we are looking at Village Hall and we're looking at one of the lots.
Yeah, Bill, I thought you had some comments on that. I thought in the email stream, Bill Jacobs, I thought we were kind of leaning more towards Village Hall just because of visibility, but.
My whole thing was the monitoring of if it's full or not. So you're just going to put another, if it's over by the fire department there, in the parking lot, then the Archer lots there, who's going to go over there regularly and check it? And if it's by the Village Hall, people, they do still come into the office, not as regularly as everyone used to with COVID and all, but it's a lot easier to check. So that was my only thinking, because I asked, well, is there a sensor in there that, phones home when it's full? How do we know it's full?
It's a steel box, Bill. It's all.
Not to overthink it. I just think it'll get more visibility at the Archer lots, where it'll get Village Hall. It will get intentional visits. Archer lot, it might also get unanticipated visits. That's all.
Well, there's also the creep factor being at the Village Hall.
There's the what?
The what?
The creep factor.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a biggie.
Well, wherever you all decide, it's fine by me. So go ahead, Jenny. Or is it
What about putting it was me, yeah. What about putting a sign on there that said, hey, if you're the one who overflows this, can you call Village Hall and leave a message that, most people would reciprocate that if requested, if they've filled it up. And, plenty of us drive by all the time. I will happily phone it in if I see that it's overflowing. I know many others would too.
I think
So you're saying Archer lot?
Yeah. Archer for me too.
I agree with. I'd be much more likely to put things in at 10 at night under the lights of Archer.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point. Okay. Consensus.
So it sounds like
Chris?
it's Archer lot. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Chris, I have a question about the sheriff's report. and it's a continuation of concerns that I have about these extra patrols and extra patrols for the subdivisions. And I've never seen a breakdown of who is this, what are they doing? And are different areas getting like a private police officer more often than I see them? And the numbers coupled with some of the other increases seem to me that if we're not careful, it's going to push us into another officer. So I guess I'm asking for more information on how we can cut down on that.
Bobby, I don't know without looking into details of specifically what those extra patrols were, but a lot of those were directed by Dave and Bill for some specific policing activities, most notably a lot of activity down at Schaefer and Checker for the cut through traffic, right?
Well, I certainly have no problem when there's a problem and there's an emphasis, but are we getting, I don't know, and this is what I'm asking, do we have, Susie, who's a little concerned that, the coyotes are really getting heavy and so we want an added patrol? I don't know.
I don't think that's the case. Bill Jacob, maybe you could jump in. I think Dave Lothspike mostly directed those special patrols when.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything that was totally anything like that. It wasn't. There was good reason, good cause for it, and the Checker cut through was a big part of that. So, Bobby, I don't have a better answer for you, but
okay, even the distinction between other and subdivisions. Why the distinction?
Yeah, I don't know.
I was going to add, I asked this question once, and there was one of those subdivisions. One of them is sort of their everything else category. It's almost like the military where they, or a contract where they have to account for all of their hours. And if they're not asked to be someplace specific, that's the code they use when they don't have a specific. So they're on duty for their 17 hours. And they don't have a particular call, and I don't remember which one it was, but there is one where they basically say, if I'm not asked to be someplace else, I am on duty for Long Grove. I am going to be driving around.
I'm over. Okay.
But the thing that we've always had the problem with, I'll just mention it to you, is the reporting overall. It's never been good, and I think that's a serious conversation we have to have. They talk about the limitations of their CAD system. Computer aided dispatch and the reporting, and that's what the challenges are. But it's not the best, right? And we'd like to get better information. So I couldn't agree with you more, Bobby.
Yeah,
well, it seems to be growing.
Yeah, but Bobby, I would be really interested in pursuing that line of questioning, because we had a cop came out here because there was a false alarm in the neighborhood. And he said, if you ever go on vacation, just let us know and we'll drive by your house. So the cop offered me that service. So, for all we know, a bunch of, people in the village are asking for this service.
Jenny, I use it.
I use it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We advertised it. We have it in the newsletter too,
Okay.
I thought.
So, so that potentially could be a lot of that time, correct?
I don't know. I don't know where they code the house
on their
watches.
usual routine.
None of us know the breakdown.
I thought they had a break on that one for home watch. I think you have to think of the unassigned other as preventative patrol, where they're cruising, but not assigned to an incident per se. And that's an important part of policing. It's not just blowing it off, because presence is really important.
Right.
But,
if that's where I was just curious how much time is on but if it's under home watch, I didn't see that broken out.
Yeah, I think it's a coded. I'm working from memory here, but I think it's a coded entry.
House watch.
Yeah, I thought
check.
it was too.
Yeah, house watch check. There were 146 year to date. Obviously, it doesn't look like people are traveling anymore, but there was a bunch in January and February. There was 33 in January, 38 in February, and then it dropped to 16 to 1 to 2 to 15.
Wow.
It's picking back up a little bit, I suppose, in the summer. It's back down again because of COVID, I'm sure. So.
Well, I've got cameras in my driveway and I'm on house watch for the last 3 weeks, and I've been watching the sheriff almost every day pull into my driveway. Some days he just drives by, some days he gets out, walks around the house. He even picked up a package that was delivered to our house and put it like more in a secure location. And some days he sits in the driveway for like 10 minutes doing whatever he's doing in his car. So I think it's,
So
I
are
think
you
it's a
gonna
great
have a
benefit.
separate,
Line
The
entry.
Chris Borowski line item.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely.
Does he know the contract's up for renewal or something?
Actually, we've used them for years. This time we just first time we've actually had cameras in the driveway. So it's interesting to see his activity and his behavior. He's not there every day, but probably, I don't know, probably 6 out of 7 days out of the week he's there, stops by. Anyway, good question, Bobby. I don't know. The data issue is a data issue. They were going to try to help improve getting better data. They recognize it's a problem. They were going to give us better Excel sheets. Maybe that's something Bill Balling and I can follow up with the sheriff's department on. They were going to give us better, instead of PDFs, they were going to give us Excel sheets. So I don't know what the status of that is, but certainly that was something that they wanted to address as well. But it won't fix all the issues for sure.
Thank you.
All right, any other, go ahead.
No, that's it for me, Bill. Thank you.
End of report, okay, thank you. Trustee Nora, do you have anything else?
I'm going to just throw one thing out there. And I really don't have a preference, but if this board was inclined to rethink their position on having any type of cannabis business in the village, now would be the time to do it, because there's a lot of movement in Springfield and there's some lawsuits about dispensaries wanting to change locations without losing their medical license abilities or without having them locked out of recreational, sales. So there's a lot of money to be made out there. That's all I'm saying about it. If this board's inclined to take it up to a further level, that's great. If you just want to leave it status quo as it is, I'm fine either way.
I said
Just
it
out of
before.
curiosity, where would you put it?
I was just going to say, Bobby, I said it before. I could see it at where the South Gateway TIF is looking.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
The
that's
area.
exactly, I've got it in the old Geimers.
Yeah. Well,
That's where I would-
that's what I'm thinking.
Oman's
I
Flower
wouldn't want to
Farm.
put it downtown.
No,
We can't put it on the north side because of where Mundeline's facility is. But after, I actually sent Bill an article a week or so ago about this. And last week I was running around the Vernon Hills area, Mundeline area, and I drove by the dispensary twice. Actually bothered to get out of my car to talk to the security guards, just to kind of get a feel for how busy they've been. There's an average of an hour and a half wait. And most of the cars in that parking lot had Wisconsin license plates, which I'm fine with. Come on in from Wisconsin and give Illinois tax revenue. That's perfect.
there's nothing between Wisconsin and Mundelein?
Mundeline is the closest facility from the Wisconsin border.
Wow.
Wow.
But, an hour and a half wait, and in most instances, it's just to pick up what people have ordered online. Now, I'd love to know what Mundeline's bringing in revenue. I have no idea, but maybe somebody in Mundeline would be kind enough to share that information and help us make a decision. I do know that Mundeline was anticipating $500,000 a year in cannabis sales tax revenue. That'd go a long way in our small little village and our operating budget. That's
Hey, Chuck,
all.
for what it's worth, I'd be supportive to talk about it. I think there's some derelict buildings that you know, we could put something in that would certainly help. I
Yeah.
still think about the flower farm would be a great, you know, Omans on 83. I mean, that building needs to do something with that building.
That is the
Yeah.
epitome of attractive nuisance.
Well, what I can tell you is it seems like wherever we would go, there needs to be a pretty substantial amount of parking, which might complicate things, but the South Lake Tiff area, you know, it's pretty wide open. So.
Yeah,
Maybe Menards would host it.
That's intriguing, Chuck. I have two friends that have cancer right now, and they are both using medical marijuana, and it's really kind of changed my thoughts because it's one of the few things that's getting them through these awful treatments. So I think it's intriguing.
Medical marijuana we do allow, right, Vic? Yeah, we do.
They go to the dispensaries to pick it up, is what that was my.
Yes.
We don't have a dispensary, but we authorize it within our town.
I think what you're going to find though,
We
right
didn't
now,
authorize any commercial. We authorized use.
We need to distinguish between medical marijuana and the cannabis for recreation.
adult use. Yeah.
And we are required to allow medical marijuana dispensaries. We have none in town. We are given the option as far as the recreational, and we've chosen not to at this point.
Mhm.
And I'm talking just about dispensaries. I'm not talking about use.
Yes. So the within the industry, the move amongst dispensaries is they want to be both. We're not going to attract a medical only dispensary. So just something to consider.
Yeah, and some of the other communities did the advisory referendum, and they've gotten some favorable votes. So I mean, that's something we could do too, but that would delay it until April. So that's an option as well.
Well, and if we are interested in doing it, the first move would be rescind the ordinance, banning it. That's no guarantee anyone would come into Long Grove, but we're not going to get anybody right now.
Having been a one who voted against it, I'm more open-minded about it today than I was then.
Yeah.
Rita, you were going to say something about using a survey tool that we have?
Well, yeah, we paid money for it, and every time it comes up that we could use it, it gets shut down. But I think that rather than waiting for a referendum, see what the residents think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a really good use of that survey tool. If it comes out strongly one way or the other, I think regardless of our decision, having that information can either make our decision better or make our communications better.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't like surveys, but in this instance, because this is not necessary to the health, safety, and welfare of our community, I would go along with that kind of an approach to finding out what some people want.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so how do we take the lead on that? Because I think that'd be a really good first step, right? So
crafting the question for the survey, I guess, would be step one. I don't know how to get it up on the website, but
I think they even have survey questions that have been sort of vetted so that they're quite neutral.
Right.
And one other side question, and it's all part of the same conversation. What's going on with CF Industries?
yeah, I've heard nothing. I don't know if I see Mike Sarletto here. I don't know if he's heard anything either, but I've heard nothing. So Jim Hogue, are you still here? He's not here anymore, right? He dropped off. Yeah.
I'm actually in communication with two different Long Grove residents who are and have applied for licenses to grow. And it wouldn't be if this village was okay with it, I could float the question by them as to, do you have a location in mind already? Would you be interested in it being a little bit closer to where you live? And see what they have to say. They may just say, no, we already have our property, and once we get our license, we're ready to go. Maybe they'd be interested in investigating something here in town.
Hey, Mike,
That needs to be a big building though, so that's
Mike
why I thought
Sarletto, you went on mute. Did you talk to the new owner of that building?
Yeah, no, other than him donating all the hand sanitizer to the downtown, I haven't heard any news from him relative to interest expressed or any kind of build out funds coming into the portfolio.
Got it.
But it's easy enough to check.
Yeah, well, I mean, timing's not good either. I mean, if you think about it, it's been what, March 15th, the last time I went into my Lincolnshire office. So, and it's, because the governor's, new restrictions, all the folks that were not essential now have had to stop coming in too. So, I think that's got a little runway until that vaccine gets out there. But
Well, I see Roger's still on the line. Probably be great to have the EDC take lead to do that. Trying to etch a role for the EDC. This might be a good one.
Well, again, the first thing we have to do as a board is decide, do we want that type of business?
yeah, but I was
Well, how
thinking,
quickly can this survey be done? This questionnaire thing?
That's a great question.
Just come up with the question. They said they would help with the phraseology. You could put it up on Monday.
Yeah. Lake Zurich, by the way, did a survey.
and
I'll find it and share it.
I actually think it came back with, I guess it depends how you look at it. I believe the answer to the question was, yes, it'd be fine with a dispensary in town.
It pretty much was. I think it was pretty much green light across the board.
okay, so who can we give that to just to run with and get it done? Is that something maybe, Bill,
For
we can ask
developing a
Denise to do?
question or for
Well,
putting
get
it
the,
up on the
getting the
website?
survey out there. I mean, unless the whole board wants to review the questions, I mean, we could circulate
I've got
them.
a little extra free time if you want me to try and dog it down and circulate it. I can get it to Bill Balling so he can share with everybody. I can't.
Thank you. Would you do that? That would be awesome.
If that's the approach everybody wants, but I've got a little extra time.
That would be
I've
great.
got a
Andy.
I've got a daughter who's got a PhD in statistics and survey design, works for a large national firm. I'm sure I can get her to take a look at, because she spends her time designing flat neutral questions that answer. So there's a possible resource. And the EDC, just to mention what Mike talked about, I think would be a good resource to just do some research, do a term paper for you all about what kind of money these facilities are generating and what kind of problems, there's information out there. And I've got a half a dozen people who'd be happy to spend some time doing some looking if that's something you'd want to look at from the EDC.
Mhm.
Well, how about I'll dog down the Lake Zurich stuff and the Polco, what they've got in their library, and then touch base with you, Roger, and see if your daughter wants to help you a review. I think it would be onerous to ask her to design for us, but if she'd review, that'd be fabulous.
I will do that, and I bet she would too. I'll talk to her at Thanksgiving.
That's all.
Yeah, and the question is dispensary and or a growing facility.
CF
Dispensary
Industries
in
would be
what?
growing, a
facility.
grow operation.
Like Geimers is all glass. Geimers would be a perfect spot for a grow facility.
Well, actually not, but we don't need to get into the physiology of indoor agriculture at this point. I will say that CF Industries would meet a lot of a grower's needs. One way in, one way out, not easily seen from the street. It could be very, very low key. Most people wouldn't even know what's going on there. So, and because of security concerns with those facilities, they like that. Growers like those types of situations.
So I think we've got enough direction to move this along
Yeah.
for a little bit. And Chuck, thank you for bringing that up. Anything else?
No, that's it. And if it, you know, if it looks like we're going in that direction, I can make some phone calls and gauge the interest of a couple different growers I'm talking to anyhow about putting equipment in their facilities.
Sounds good, Chuck. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got Trustee O'Connor. Do you have anything that you want to share with the board?
I would like to get the question regarding the use of coal tar sealants on an agenda. Buffalo Grove recently banned it. I brought it up previously.
Yep. No, I actually have a note on it. Just haven't gotten to it yet. So, but have you? We just need to. Did you have any of the information from Buffalo Grove that could be shared, or maybe we could ask Bill to look at that for us?
I have what was in the paper. I certainly can call the people at BG and find out more particulars if you want.
Yep.
Where are these sealants being used?
Driveway.
Driveways, parking.
Driveways. Oh, you mean like the blacktop sealant stuff?
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There are environmental, physical hazards apparently, which I wasn't aware of till I read about in the paper.
What's the
Well,
alternative?
They smell horrible when they're first laid down, I can tell you that.
Oh, it's a wonderful smell.
And the other updates Jeff has, Cuba Road's finished. We all know Kruger Road.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah, I
Anything
think
else?
it came out well. Oh, Rita, I just wanted to jump in. Bobby, your question about the seal coating. There's two products out there. One's coal tar based and the other is asphalt emulsion based. And for public works projects, the coal tar has been banned for a number of years because of the environmental and health risks. And the coal tar is still active in the private ring, if you will.
So if you go to Menards and you buy a jug of that sealant, is it going to be coal tar?
I believe it is the asphalt emulsion base, but
It is
I'd have to
because
check.
it is the asphalt emulsion base because it doesn't work very well. Coal tar used to work really well.
Yeah, that's why coal tars was very popular. It worked
Yeah, it
very well.
worked.
The asphalt emulsion, if it rains after you put it on, it washes away.
Yeah.
How long does it have to dry for that not to happen?
Usually 24 hours.
Well,
we don't
that's
have
what.
we really
Go ahead.
don't have anything else to report, right?
Okay. No. Or Jeff,
No,
do you have
that's-
anything else? Yeah.
No, that's nothing for me.
But we just need to circulate information on the coal tar stuff, right? And
Or get some data. How often is it even used in the village? And, you know, is it worth talking about? I mean, banning
Right.
something that's not used is just more paperwork that's on the books, you know?
right.
How would we have the answer to that though?
Well, to Jeff's point, if the public works guys aren't using it and you're not buying it in Menards, then nobody's really buying it. You're not getting it anywhere. You just can't run out and buy the stuff, you know?
Yeah, but go ahead.
An outfit by the name of Baraka seems to be the ones that are doing all the seal coating in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be an easy phone call to ask what products they use.
Yeah, there's another one out there too whose signs I see frequently. I'll check.
Yeah.
Well, whatever research we need to do, I think that's what I was going to look for, some of the articles on it, but haven't gotten a chance. So. And Jeff, if you have any information, that would be awesome if you could share too, you know?
Yeah, I know we've got a whole host of things. I'll gather some and circulate it to yourself and Rita.
Okay, cool.
And
Thank
Bill
you.
Balling, of course.
Yep, thank you. Awesome.
You're welcome.
Anything else for us while we got you, or no?
No.
Nothing else to report from my end.
Okay, thank you. And a report, Rita?
Yes.
Thank you. Bobby, anything else from you?
I have too have spoken.
I have spoken. I love it. That's awesome. All right. I don't have anything else for myself. Bill, it's getting late. Do you have anything you want to share?
No, I think we've had discussion on the issues earlier on the agenda.
Okay, perfect. Can I move on then? Approval of the minutes from the October 27th and the November 10th meetings, board meetings. Anyone want to make a motion, or anyone have any corrections they need for those?
Have you guys seen 9:22, 10:05, and 10:13?
Nope.
No, I think those are going to go on the December 8th agenda.
Okay.
Anyone want to make a motion to approve the November 10th and the October 27th meeting minutes?
I would make a motion to approve the board meeting minutes of November 10th, 2020.
Okay, moved by trustee O'Reilly, seconded by
Second.
trustee Micho. Roll call.
All right. Trustee Borowski,
Yes.
Trustee Kritzmeyer, Trustee Kritzmeyer.
And
Yes.
you're, we can't, okay, good.
I know. Yes. Thank you. Trustee O'Reilly,
Yes.
Trustee Nora,
Yes. Yes.
Trustee O'Connor.
Yes.
Getting late.
Did I hear a yes?
Said yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, sorry. I got crashing waves around me.
No
Trustee
problem.
Micho?
Yes.
All right, motion
Thank
carried.
you.
Vic, is there any reason to go into executive session tonight?
I don't think that there's anything pressing, no.
Okay. Does anyone want to really go into
Bill?
executive session? Go ahead.
No, I have two things that I just thought of. One is, I don't know if you saw the note that went out to everybody about the turkey trot. Somehow that slipped out and was broadcast today.
Oh, is that
On
why
what
Ben
the
Finch
route
sent
is?
the email?
What?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, my wife got that email too.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know what system it went on, but just so you know, it did go out. And then the second thing is when you showed the picture of the sleigh and the bridge, we used to get the Herald, and we used to get clippings of articles that were relative to the village. Do we not get the Herald anymore, or do we not cut any articles out anymore?
So Bill, you're muted. Dave Letspike used to, Bill, you're muted.
The Herald, you mean the subscription in Village Hall? I've not seen the paper there, Bobby. I'll look into it, but.
Okay, maybe somebody canceled the subscription. I don't know. That was a very nice service to those of us who don't get it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll look into it, see what, I mean, it's not that expensive to get a day subscription if we're gonna have somebody that could, look through it and cut out the articles associated. That would have been a nice one that Bill showed us today. 'Cause that was actually a pretty good coverage. I think it's a regional coverage.
Yeah, there was another one on the 15th too. So the problem is I'm getting them in the hard paper and I'm not getting them. I had to go search for it online.
I
So,
have
but
a
Dave-
subscription. I can look and I can send them.
Yeah, I just, what Bobby's saying is one of the nice things that Dave did was he would capture that stuff and post them. He put it on the Google Drive. So,
Well, and it wasn't always just about us. It might be about Barrington or something that related to something that we were doing.
right. Yeah, he would put those up
So
there.
it was a nice thing.
Yep.
We'll take a look at it.
Thanks, Bobby. All right, anything else? If not, how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, moved by trustee O'Connor, seconded by trustee O'Reilly. Roll call?
Trustee Micho.
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee O'Connor.
Yes.
Trustee Nora.
Yes.
Trustee O'Reilly.
Aye.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Yes.
And Trustee Borowski.
Yes. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, and happy Thanksgiving.
night,
Be
everyone.
safe.
Thanksgiving.
Happy
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Stay
Meeting
safe.
adjourned. Thank you.
Night.
10:09.